American Sunrise Early Edition. It's easily the most watched and hotly contested judicial election in American history. And today is Election Day in Wisconsin to decide the balance of power in a key swing state and perhaps Capitol Hill. But speaking of Congress, there are actually two special House elections in Florida today as well. And the polls say they're both closer than you might expect. The thin Republican majority in the House could be thinner by tonight. In a normal world, everyone considers it a good thing when cops find and apprehend criminals. But cops in Rochester, New York, who helped ICE get a hold of some illegal aliens, are now under attack. Speaking of mixed up, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth makes a big move to sort out the mixed up rules of the previous administration. And he's starting by enforcing the same fitness rules for all of the troops. And the polls show Maine's governor is 35 points behind on a crucial issue where she stood up to the president. But if she's not standing up for her own constituents, as the polls say, who's she doing it for anyway? American Sunrise Early Edition starts now.
Welcome to American Sunrise Early Edition. The show where faith, freedom, and the values that built this nation take center stage.
Your good deeds and bad deeds. That's how we're going to judge you.
Join host Jake Novak as he breaks down the stories that matter.
We will be letting the public know regularly what we have found.
American Sunrise Early Edition with your host, Jake Novak, starts now.
And good morning and welcome to an April Fool's Tuesday here on American Sunrise Early Edition. There'll be no April Fooling on this program, but as a public service announcement, everyone just be ready. Don't get fooled today. A lot of the April Fool's jokes come from news sources, so-called news sources. So just be ready. And remember, if your younger sibling or friend or spouse tries to fool you, just be ready. There will be none of that in this program, although we will have fun and we also will learn something. And we're going to start with Daily Signal columnist Jarrett Stepman. And Jarrett, check out this headline. I want to start with the headline about this election in Wisconsin because this is interesting. They decided in the mainstream news media to make this all about Elon Musk. This is the headline: Groups funded by Elon Musk, Wisconsin Supreme Court election. Look, Jared, give me a break. There is so much money coming from all sides in this crucial Supreme Court election. I think we can all agree it's an important election. I think also, by the way, Jarrett, we can agree this has got to be the most high-profile judicial election in American history. I think that goes without saying. But to make it all about one man's funding, and yes, Elon Musk is the biggest single funder, but the other side, going for Susan Crawford for basically the kind of the liberal side, has put in 77% of the money coming from outside Wisconsin. There's a lot of fingers to be pointed here. What are you looking for today? And do you think that all the hype surrounding this election is justified, Jarrett?
Yeah, it is quite amazing to see that the focus entirely on Musk. I think that's very typical. Obviously, George Soros and J.B. Pritzker, also big-time liberal billionaires, have poured a lot of money into this race. They see how it is quite important. I will say that I think many are seeing this, first of all, sort of as a bellwether as far as where Trump is during his presidency, even though it's only been really not even the first 100 days yet. Obviously, there's some also huge issues in Wisconsin, too, which has become one of the big swing states in the country on issues like abortion, especially the potential partisan makeup of the legislature, of the Congress people coming out of the state. I mean, there's a big effort now to redraw the state maps. This happens every so many years, and that's a huge deal. I mean, how the maps are drawn politically may depend on who actually gets sent to Congress in the state. That's a big reason why so much outside money is being dumped into this race, because the court will ultimately have final say in what that map will look like.
Yeah. Every time I think about redistricting, I'm thinking maybe one day AI will do the job. AI will take a look at it and see what a real neighborhood is, what a real district is. And but of course, we can't trust the people programming the AI not to be biased in some way. But maybe that could be our answer. But you just mentioned it, the redistricting and how that could affect House races. Because, of course, it doesn't matter what redistricting does. Every state's going to get 2 Senate seats. So this is about the House. And Jared, we actually have two House races today. I mean, we talk about Wisconsin and how this judicial race will affect House races in the future. But forget about the future for a second. We have two House races today in Florida that could really either help give Mike Johnson and the Republicans a little bit more breathing room, or it could really very much threaten that 5-seat majority they have right now. What's your take on some of these elections? And do you agree with me that maybe we should have paid a little bit more attention to those and, or at least give it the same attention as the Wisconsin race?
Yeah, I mean, it's a 218 to 213 majority right now for others, effectively. It's one of the reasons why Elise Stefanik was recalled from her appointment to the UN to come back, because this majority is very thin. No matter what happens in the UN, it's not as important as a single vote in Congress. And I will say that this often happens during a downtime. You have a special election. Not a lot of voters are involved or participating. These two districts tend to be very heavily Republican. But look, this is it's an off-year kind of thing. It's not President Trump is not atop the ticket. A lot of people who support him may not be paying attention at the moment to the race that's going on in their district. It seems like there still is an edge to the two Republican candidates, but these races are a lot closer than anybody would have expected. We'll see what the ultimate vote count is at the end of the day. I think in the last few weeks, there has been sort of a surge in interest in these races because, again, what happens in Congress, I mean, the president's agenda, what happens with the Republicans in Congress very much will depend potentially on these few seats. So I will say to voters, don't just check out during the times of special elections. If you really, especially in a case where you have one party that has both the House and the Senate and the presidency, that's a huge deal. That's an opportunity that only comes around every so often, not very often. And so these races do very much matter as far as what the laws of the land are going to be.
Yeah, I mean, as far as participation is concerned with these special elections, we know, and even though you said there's been a spike of interest the last couple of weeks, we know that the turnout's going to be much lower than it was during the regular election time. But one of the things that the political class and people in D.C. don't understand is that the folks in the rest of this country are not as obsessed with elections and voting all the time. And it's just something that's not top of mind. And that makes us normal human beings. And I don't really get very angry at people who may not be coming around to this until the last couple of days. But at some point, yeah, I mean, they have to understand that if this was important to you, if you voted for a particular presidential candidate and you had a particular agenda here, you've got to be ready to vote once in a while. And I know that's a pain. And I know these people are constantly deciding that politics has to take over parts of your life when you just want to go to work or send your kids to school. But it's one of those things that just once in a while, you don't have to be obsessed about it, though, like the DC people. Speaking of obsessions and I think really mania, Jared, cops in Rochester, New York, are under attack for helping ICE. There was a video that came out showing some cops in Rochester helping ICE apprehend criminal illegal aliens. And now those cops are being personally attacked all over the city and in the areas around it. Luckily for them, though, I think some good news is that Tom Homan, the border czar, isn't having it. He's standing up for them. He says I think he's going to go personally visit them. But this is, to me, a scary tactic now. Now they're going to go after the cops individually. And this is something that is a very big part of the anarchist movement. It reminds me of the early 70s, targeting individual cops. And I think this is something that, sadly, if we don't stop it now, is going to become a national trend.
Yeah, it's especially interesting to see that in Rochester, a place that has a lot of crime issues. These guys actually trying to enforce the law instead of lawbreakers get away, I think is quite, it says a lot. And it says a lot about the New York political establishment, too. How much they're really, they're leaning entirely into the sanctuary laws. Rochester's been a sanctuary city, I believe, since the mid-1980s. We've seen the consequences of that. Even though a lot of New York voters have actually turned against it, the political establishment, as it is, wants resistance. It wants the new resistance movement against the Trump administration. They're willing to intimidate individuals who want to work with the Trump administration just to uphold the basic laws of this country. I mean, this wasn't really Trump's laws. These were just the laws passed by Congress. These are basic border laws that Trump is simply now enforcing. And to go after some cops for doing their job, following their basic instincts to uphold the law and protect the community, that's a terrible thing. That really shouldn't happen. Unfortunately, unfortunately, in a lot of blue states and a lot of blue districts, we're going to see these kind of tactics.
You know, and I'll tell you, I have a little bit of personal information about this because I know some people who work professionally, like in the PR field for the city of Rochester. This is a city that's trying to come back, that's trying to have an economic resurgence based on some tech issues, also based on the fact that they have cheaper electric power in places like Rochester. Let me just give you some advice. Nip this one in the bud. If you have a city where people are individually going after cops, businesses are not going to want to go there. This is a mantra of mine. I've written many articles about it over the years. Poverty does not cause crime. Crime causes poverty. If you are in an area or a city where crime is running higher or rampant, you will create more and more poverty. Crack down on crime. You won't scare away businesses. You will encourage them to come in. Crack down on people who are targeting your cops. All right, finally, Jarrett, speaking of money, let's talk about your column that's now out in the Daily Signal about, you talk about how President Trump is finding a way to get at this shadowy funding structure. You know, one of the big misnomers in America is NGO, non-government organization. But if these NGOs are getting a way to find their way to get to taxpayer money, then it is a GO, right? It is getting some government money, but that's just part of your column, right? You're talking about all these backdoor ways that left-wing groups are getting funding and that Trump is kind of shining a light on them.
Yeah, I think that that's been a huge revolution that's taking place in our politics. I think it was interesting that EPA Secretary Lee Zeldin talked about how he's canceling billions of dollars of grants that were essentially going to climate activists, community organizers, people working for NGOs, an NGO executive who funneled a lot of money to his NGO when he worked for the Biden administration, of course, has gone back to work for the NGO. I mean, this is really the kind of corrupt regime that's been created by the vast federal Leviathan we have. It's not just large and wasteful. It's also spending money. It's sending money to a lot of these groups who are basically political activists. And people think that we did away with the spoil system a long time ago. That's not correct. We still have a spoil system. It works on behalf of one party, and it's far vaster and more organized than it was even in the 19th century. I think the Trump administration, DOJ, have done an excellent job of going after these networks, at cutting off that funding. That's why the left, I think, has turned to protest and anger, I think somewhat impotently at this point, because the administration has been very successful. And that's a huge deal. That's not just a big deal right now. That's a big deal going forward. It's going to save the American people a lot of money and also cut off these activist networks from their activities that have basically been underwritten by the American federal government, by the taxpayers, by all the American people.
Yeah, I mean, it's again, even if you support all of these causes, aren't you worried about the fact that the government was finding ways to put taxpayer money into these causes without the people knowing about without the voters? I mean, if I were even supporting one of these causes, I'd be worried about that, because how do I know that the next government coming in, the next president, won't do the same with a cause I don't believe in? It's better to be independent and to have your integrity. Jarrett Stettman, thank you so much for joining us. Have a great rest of your week.
Thank you, too.
All right, coming up. Stretching the law to disqualify the most popular political candidate isn't just a ploy here in America. France's top contender has been undermined in the same way. I will explain. And later, colleges rarely hire actual teachers anymore. They mostly hire administrators. But why so many? And what do they do? You're going to meet an Ivy League student later this hour who is trying to find out and risking a lot to do it. American Sunrise Early Edition. We'll be right back. That's a live shot of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I am very envious of the traffic in downtown Philly after 7 a.m. I mean, if that were New York, it would be already bumper to bumper. Not bad. I guess driving to work in Philly is something you can still do. Welcome back to American Sunrise Early Edition. It's a Tuesday. Yes, it's April Fool's Day. I will have no phony stories on this show, but keep your ears and eyes open all day, especially, by the way, if you follow financial news. That is where they really, really try to punk you. So just be ready. And thank you so much for joining me in the Getter and the Rumble chats. Hey, French right-wing party leader Marine Le Pen has been found guilty of embezzlement. And I'm going to put embezzlement in quotes because I took a look at the charges, and it's really, really a stretch. If you think they stretched the boundaries of the law to go after President Trump here in America with Alvin Bragg and some of those other cases, you got to see this case out of the EU. But she's been found guilty, and now she's been barred very conveniently from running for office for the next 5 years. It just so happens that in 2027, which was within those next 5 years, of course, is the next French presidential election. So Marine Le Pen, who's ahead in the polls as of now, the election were held today, is now not able to run. This is happening, again, not only here in the United States, where it wasn't successful against Donald Trump, but it's happening in Europe. It happened in Romania. It's happening in France. They're trying to do it in Israel, where they keep trying to indict Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on things that don't even make that much sense. This is incredibly anti-democratic. And it's really, really sickening when you hear the Democratic Party and the left and their friends in the news media talk about how Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. The people who are crying about that are literally trying to undermine the democratic and voting process. It's as simple as that. This is a worldwide trend. Something needs to be done to stop it. We can't really do much about it, I guess, to stop it in France. But we can do something about it here in the United States. To quote the great film, A Man for All Seasons, these people think they're going after the devil, so they cut down all the laws to go after the devil. They think the devil's Donald Trump. What happens when the devil, the real devil, not Donald Trump, turns around on you and you cut down all the laws that protect you? Where will you hide? The answer is nowhere. So stop destroying the law to go after the guy you don't like. Beat him at the ballot box. And if you can't do that, find a way to work with him. Simple as that. All right. Another day, another outrageous case of a school forcing young girls to be visibly assaulted and their privacy shattered by a biological male. Moms for Liberty Scarlett Johnson has the story for Charlie Kirk right here. Check it out.
Parents, it's just insane. A biological male, 16 years old, obvious male, over 200 pounds, who identified as trans, was allowed to change in the girls' locker room. Freshman girls, so these are 13 and 14-year-old girls, were terrified. This boy has alleged to strip nude, to leer at the girls while they were changing, and even alleged that he rubbed lotion on his genitalia to, quote, prevent chafing. I had to do a lot of research before I even started to post this on X and start to sound all the alarms, because it was hard to believe. It was hard to believe that this was happening in Wisconsin, but it absolutely was. Putting on a skirt and some makeup, putting on a woman face does not make a boy a man. And this insane transgender ideology has just warped the mind of even the school staff. These girls, when they complained, the gym teacher told them to stop being dramatic and that it would be discriminatory to not allow the boy who was harassing and intimidating the girls to change. And so the girls started to try to use the gender neutral space, the family locker rooms. And when they did, they were late for class and they got unexcused absences and failing grades. They kicked the girls out of the gender neutral space, a space that the boys should have gone to. Instead, the girls were lining up trying to use it to escape from this boy. It's just insane. And then it gets even worse because this boy is alleged to have yelled at the girls, pushed the girls, even thrown one of their Chromebooks against the wall when they demanded that he get out of the space that they told him they were uncomfortable changing in front of him. And the school took the side of this boy instead.
Be my guest. Be my guest, Democrats and left-wing people. And again, I'm talking about the elected leaders. Take the side of this insanity and see what that does to you at the polls. Unbelievable. I just don't believe, I can't believe this continues to be a hill they want to die on. Well, the Charlie Kirk Show airs here on Real America's Voice every Monday through Friday at noon Eastern time. He's got a lot of stories like that every day. All right, here's another gender issue in America. The latest figures show there is a 14% gender gap between women and men at Michigan's public and private colleges. That's it, 14% more women than men. Now, it's great. Remember, there was a time when there were hardly any women in American colleges 100 years ago. It's great that they now get a great pathway to higher education. But more and more men are being turned off to this kind of education path. And it's fine if we have a lot of great blue-collar and manufacturing jobs in America. But honestly, that is a gender gap that's very, very scary. We can't have a situation where men are turned off by the whole higher education process. Somebody needs to fix this. We're going to talk more about higher education later this hour. All right, coming up, it seems like everyone's taking one of those injectable weight loss drugs right now. I got a lot of people in my family who are doing that. But, you know, Wall Street seems to know something about them that maybe they don't. I'll explain in just a moment. And James Bond's favorite car line is getting a nice stash of new cash. Shaken, not stirred. That story is part of our daily Moving America segment, and that's coming up after this. That's a live look at Paterson, New Jersey right now, Paterson Falls. There's some nice things to see in New Jersey. Not the politicians that we're going to talk about one in a few minutes. Let's also take a look at something that may not be so pretty right now. Let's take a look where the markets are going to begin today. And it looks like we're going to start down 200 points on the Dow, at least if the market's open right at this minute. Also, look at crude oil. We were under $70 a barrel for quite a while. We shot up yesterday, and we're at the $71 a barrel level right now. And let's take a look at Bitcoin. And by the way, look at gold at 3163. But let's look at the Bitcoin. Bitcoin's up to the $84,000 mark. So they were down all the way to 80 a couple of days ago. So that's creeping back up again. But it's been range bound. It's been between 80 and like 88,000 for a few weeks now. Be interesting to see if it breaks out of that. All right. Economists are predicting a gloomy first quarter GDP. GDP is one of those boring economic terms, and it's one of those reasons why you don't watch financial news. So let me just explain. It's basically a measure of the economy. GDP means the economy. Is the economy growing? Are we getting richer as a country overall? Or are we getting poorer? Or are we just standing still? So a bunch of economists got polled yesterday, and they say that the economy in the first 3 months of this year, which just ended yesterday, is likely only to grow 0.3%. I'm going to make a bet here right now, and I don't know what I'd do if I lose it. Maybe I'll wear a funny tie or something. I'm going to bet that first quarter GDP, first quarter economy, when that comes out, the first reading on it in a few days, is going to be better than 0.3%. Not saying that for any political reason. I just don't see that kind of a very, that's basically no growth. I don't think we had no growth in the first quarter this year. So I'm making a bet we're going to do better than 0.3. Remember, not 3%, 0.3. That's how low they think growth is going to be or was for the first 3 months of this year. All right. But even if the economy does slow down for a while, some Americans believe it will be worth it if some long-term threats in our economy and in our society are destroyed in the process. In other words, a little bit of economic pain to get rid of bigger threats. That's exactly what one economic and cultural expert told Jack Posobiec. Check it out.
America is, we always have this debate, right? We're not just an economic tool. People are not tools for the economy or the GDP. We are prioritizing American families, prioritizing the American working class, and the voters that voted in this change before we're going to be kowtowing to foreign countries, corporations, or anything else. We are not an idea. We are a nation, and we are a people. And those people come first before anything else. And those people mandated this change back in November. So we have to make sure that we are concentrating on prioritizing the right economic policy, the right foreign policy, and the right negotiation tactics to come up with the best result and the best outcome for those workers and their families and their children's futures and their own futures. We have to be able to prioritize that before we concentrate on any other economic, GDP scale or anything to brag on MSNBC. We need to be able to ensure the American workers are safe, their savings accounts are funded, and their children can go to school, the children can be safe, stay alive, and ensure that these families are facilitated throughout the next generation and create the next great generation as those that came before them.
Human Events with Jack Posobiec airs every Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time right here on Real America's Voice. All right. The company that makes the wildly popular weight loss injectable drugs, Ozempic and Wegovy, is a Danish pharma firm that has a funny name. It's called Novo Nordisk. But its shares are down, by the way, 46% from a year ago today. That's despite the fact that everybody seems to be on these drugs. And by the way, they hit a 52-week low yesterday after they came back a little bit, the shares in that company. So what's going on when you have so much demand, people basically knocking down the door to get these drugs, and the stock price is still going down so much? Well, there's a little bit of two things going on. The first is there's a little bit more competition in the mix. For a while there, Novo Nordisk kind of had the market to itself, almost. So that happened. You had a bunch of people like Eli Lilly getting into the market. I get it. But the other thing going on right now is I think a lot of people now, after taking this drug for a certain period of time, are getting tired of the side effects. They're getting tired of the fact that once they go off it, if they do go off it, you gain the weight right back almost immediately. And there's definitely a clamoring in the not only the customer world, but in the pharma world for a better product. So what we're seeing right now is very, very interesting, though, when you have a product, there's still people trying to get this product who maybe haven't tried it yet and haven't felt the side effects. And let me just say one more thing about this. No, I am not saying that the only answer to weight loss is willpower. I understand that that isn't the answer for everyone. I think it's an answer for a lot of people, but it's not an answer for everyone. However, that doesn't mean you should necessarily go on an injectable drug that might have terrible side effects for you and, of course, might end up just making you almost addicted to it because you can't ever get off of it. Just some concerns that I have that clearly Wall Street has too. Wall Street, believe me, they might get things wrong, but they don't lie. And Wall Street, by sending those shares down 46% in a year, says it doesn't think it's going to last. They may be wrong, but they don't lie. All right, speaking of weaknesses, the new live-action Snow White film, that reboot from Disney, it keeps performing worse and worse. It had a terrible, terrible opening weekend a couple of weekends ago. How did it do this weekend? It had a 66% drop in the box office. Now, new movies usually have a 20 or 30% drop in the box office in the second weekend. That happens. But 66%? Yikes. And speaking of bad percentages, Disney shares are down almost 20% for the year so far. 3 months into the year, and Disney shares are down 20%. Okay, speaking of Snow White, mirror, mirror on the wall, let's get back on the road. All right, if we're talking about autos, we got to talk about tariffs. We're one day away from the tariffs kicking in, that big day of freedom President Trump is teasing us about and telling us that he's going to have a big announcement. So let's talk about how they're dealing with it now, because the time for lobbying seems to be over. And the time to talk to your own employees about it, if you're an auto company, is really kind of past time for that. And so GM CEO Mary Barra and Ford CEO Jim Farley, their letters, their emails to all of their employees leaked out yesterday. And it's actually not so bad if you're someone who's concerned about them being too hysterical. Both of them talk about challenges ahead, but both of them talk about how they are going to be strong and they're going to get through this. That's not a bad message if you're a leader of a company. But the fact is, unless they move more of their production, especially GM in this case, back to the United States, they will be hurting over this. And this is one case where a Republican president is really joining forces in some ways, or at least ideologically, with the unions who want these tariffs to go into place. Let's see if GM moves a little bit more of their production bit by bit back to the United States. My feeling is that they do that, even if they don't do it fully, President Trump will be very, very lenient about enforcing tariffs going forward. But they're going into effect tomorrow. You can believe that. How long they stay in effect is up to GM and Ford, I think. All right. The wait for one brand's most popular type of vehicle is just getting longer. Buyers of Toyota hybrid cars and SUVs are now seeing 70-day wait times to get into their new vehicles. Now, if you've been watching this program, you know that I've been talking for a long time about how regular hybrid cars, not the plug-ins and not EVs, are going to be the most popular type of car for a long time, because you get amazing mileage with these cars without having to do any of the electric charging, without having to deal with any of the problems that electric cars sometimes have in very cold weather. This is kind of the best of both worlds. Toyota was the first to figure this out, but they can't make them fast enough to get to buyers. A 70-day wait time for a car that isn't like a custom-made sports car is insane, however, and Toyota better fix this problem or someone else is going to get to market quicker with these regular hybrids. That's my prediction. All right, the state of Virginia is considering something really interesting to deal with speeders, habitual speeders, I guess I should say. They are floating the idea of putting a speed limiting device in the engine of your car if you've had a certain number of speeding tickets. Now, before you cry foul about this, this is being floated as an alternative to having your license completely suspended. So if you're one of those big libertarian types who's really upset about the government putting a device in your car, maybe this is, again, I don't want to speak for you, maybe this is a compromise you're willing to make. Instead of having your license taken away and maybe every opportunity you might have for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, you're willing to drive 55 and stay alive. I'm sorry, Sammy Hagar. I know you can't drive 55. So you may not want to move to Virginia. All right. Aston Martin. Canadian billionaire Larry Stroll is putting together more than $150 million more dollars, because he's already put a lot of money into this company already, into the British sports car icon, Aston Martin. It's best known for providing James Bond with his flashy cars. This comes as the company just completed 170 job cuts. That's 5% of the whole workforce, by the way. And yes, I am doing this story just to look at these cars on the screen. It is really nice to look at Aston Martin's. Oh, and by the way, there is a very nice Aston Martin dealership that they're building, and I think they just finished, near our studios and control room in West Palm Beach. So, I have it on my head, on my mind. It is a beautiful car. I can't speak to its reliability, though, but if you can afford an Aston Martin, you probably can afford some repairs. All right. The IRS is the largest collection agency in the world, and with April 15th fast approaching, it's more aggressive than ever. In 2025, enforcement has ramped up. And if you owe back taxes or have unfiled returns, waiting is not an option. The longer you do, the worse it gets. Ignoring your tax troubles is the worst thing you can do. April 15th marks another tax year that has passed you by. Getting ahead of this now is the smart move, but never contact the IRS alone. Instead, let the experts at Tax Network USA handle it for you. Why? Because not all tax resolution companies are the same. Tax Network USA has a preferred direct line to the IRS, meaning they know exactly which agents to deal with and which to avoid. With proven strategies to settle tax problems in your favor, whether you owe $10,000 or $10 million. Tax Network USA's attorneys and negotiators have already resolved over $1 billion in tax debt. Talk with one of their strategists today. It's free. Stop the threatening letters. Stop looking over your shoulder and protect yourself from property seizures and bank levies. Don't let the IRS control your future. Call 1-800-905-8000 or visit tnusa.com/RAV. April 15th is just around the corner. Act now before the IRS acts first. All right, coming up, a student at one Ivy League university is going after the ugly truth, and the response he's getting is pretty ugly too. You'll meet him live when American Sunrise Early Edition comes right back. It's Monday, April 1st. Here are some of this morning's top stories. It's easily the most watched and hotly contested judicial election in American history. Looking at some nice pictures of Wisconsin, that is the place where you have the election to decide the balance of power in that key swing state's Supreme Court, but it could also affect everything on Capitol Hill. But speaking of Capitol Hill, there are actually two special House elections in Florida today. And the polls say they're both closer than you might expect. The thin Republican majority in the House could be thinner by tonight. It could also have a little bit more breathing room. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is making a big move to sort out the mixed up rules of the previous administration. And he's starting by enforcing the same fitness rules for all the troops in combat positions. And the polls show Maine's governor is 35 points behind on the crucial issue of whether boys should be allowed to play girls' sports. She still decided to stand up to the president on the issue for some reason, but if she's not standing up to her own constituents or for her own constituents, then who's she standing up for anyway? American Sunrise Early Edition continues now. Welcome back to American Sunrise Early Edition. It is April 1st, but I'm not doing any April Fool's stories on this show. It's just too important. Find that on the internet if you want, not here. And again, I want to thank everyone on the Getter and Rumble chats for joining us. Here's another important story, an important issue I want to make sure everyone knows about. Now, we keep hearing about all these anti-Semitic and anti-American protests, radical students on the campuses. But you're about to meet one Ivy League student who has his head on very straight, because his name is Alex Shea, and he is the brave Brown University student trying to show just how much administrative bloat there is at his school, and it's not the only one. Alex, can you tell us a little bit about what inspired you to try to find out about all these, I think something like 3,200 administrators at Brown University. It's not that big a school. Can you tell us what inspires you to try to find out what these folks do and how this affected you?
Yeah, Jake, it's more like 3,800 actually, and it might be April 1st, but this is not an April Fool's joke. Brown has about one administrator for every 2 undergraduate students. We're not a big state school, like you mentioned. It's more than double the faculty count. And so I've been looking into this because it's a concern. The cost of education at Brown is $93,000 a year. I think that's insane that that we're expecting people to pay this. And of course, most people can't pay this. That's why Ivy League schools are disproportionately rich from people from the coasts, but this is screwing over regular Americans in the heartland. And so I figured I had to do something about it. So about 2 weeks ago, I sent out an email to all 3,805 administrators to ask them, what did you do last week? I was planning to feed their responses into an AI algorithm to sort of calculate what's the importance of each person. Who do we need? Who do we not need? Because the number of administrators has obviously increased very drastically over the past half century. And universities function fine with a fraction of the administrators. So I just thought it was an important issue to look at, because really we have the American dream at stake when they're squeezing students this thin with these positions that what's some associate vice provost of what now? Like we have all of these administrative bureaucrats, and it's really unclear what they do, except for increase the bottom line for students and decrease the opportunities for upward mobility from normal everyday kids.
Yeah, and a lot of these positions, Alex, as you well know, are highly politicized. This is where the political agenda gets shoved down the throats of the students and indirectly the parents who are paying their tuition. And Alex, you were basically, from what we found out from a story that was leaked out to the news media by a group called FIRE, F-I-R-E, instead of being proud of a student at their university, looking for truth, you're kind of a modern day Diogenes, they threatened you. They threatened you and said something along the lines, again, this is from the article that was leaked out, they said you were emotionally harassing these administrators by sending them an email and asking them what they did. I mean, how is that different from a professor saying, hey, did you do your homework?
I would say it's certainly not emotional harassment. That's certainly not the right word. I think maybe a more accurate term would be journalism, because that's what this is. This is through one of our student papers at Brown University. It's not officially sanctioned by the school, but that's no problem. Like our biggest student newspaper here at Brown University, the Brown Daily Herald, it's not either. And they're saying certain things to the press, but we all know that this is journalism. It's a request for comment. We want to hear from these people because we know that not all of them are useless. Like, I wouldn't say get rid of all 3,805. Like, some of these people are critical to operations. The thing is, with these titles and these unclear, vague titles, it's unclear who's important, who's not important. And really, I think it's important so that we can tell. And especially since funding cuts might be coming to Brown pretty soon, because University of Michigan, they just got rid of their DEI program. Brown, nope. So for all we know, Brown's federal funding could be on the chopping block. And if that happens, well, definitely they're going to need to start thinking about some layoffs. And I think we're getting ahead of the ball. We're listing out the positions that involve DEI that could potentially threaten our federal funding, so the administration can be proactive and eliminate those positions. And we're also just trying to mark the positions that just bloat the bottom line, that aren't really necessary. I remember in my research there were like multiple full-timers working on ad sales for the Alumni magazine, for instance. I didn't even know the Alumni magazine had ads, but I don't know why you need multiple people to run that anyway. And it's this sort of thing that is everybody wants their own assistant, right? Because it makes them feel more important, more special. But when everybody has an assistant, then that's how you get 3,805 administrators. Like, I can handle my own email without an assistant. I really question why some of these mid-level bureaucrats have all these assistants and all these other mid-level administrators, and it's unclear what a lot of them do.
Yeah, I mean, Alex, and again, for the viewers to understand, Alex is no stranger to asking the real hard questions and pointing out the issues going on at some of these universities. Years ago, you commented publicly on the discriminatory practices at some of the top universities, especially when the Supreme Court was ruling on that practice at Harvard. To me, this is a bigger issue than just the money and bloat, and you're talking about access to education. That's absolutely important. But I wonder if you agree with me on this. I feel like the discriminatory practices at these top universities against Asian American students, against Jewish American students, against, in some cases, South Asian, like Indian and Pakistani students, is the beginning of, it's kind of like a tinder or a little thing that starts a fire that might also start violence against Asian Americans in the streets and violence against Jewish Americans in the streets. I don't know if it's completely unrelated. I wonder what your thoughts are on that.
Oh, well, I certainly hope that's not the case, that it starts violence, because nobody wants violence. But I think it's ultimately sort of two diametrically opposed options. Is on the one side, we have sort of meritocracy, the American dream, that you work hard and you get far. And on the other side, we sort of have this vision of elitism, where everybody just sort of does what the progressive coastal elites tells them to do, and sort of things that are trendy and hip, like DEI, is like you got to do it because they told you to. And I have a theory about DEI, is that everybody is like, DEI is all about opportunities for people that are marginalized, whatever that means. I thought Asians and Jewish students were also a minority. But anyway, DEI is supposedly about these opportunities for marginalized groups. But the thing is that they're not just propping up anybody, right? They're like, for the most part, they're like these admissions offices, they have like about a 5% acceptance rate. So they're handpicking the people that they want to represent these groups. And for all we know, they don't actually represent the groups. They're maybe not they're maybe not a representative sample, but they're just the people who are gonna toe the party line. And I think ultimately this is what it is. It's elitism versus the American dream. They want to charge $93,000 a year. I want it to be more accessible, because the whole idea of the Ivy League is it's supposed to be the best and the brightest. But whenever I tell people to go to Brown, they just think I'm some rich kid. I mean, I wish that Brown was more accessible to people. And yes, they do have financial aid, but I think that's quite misleading, because they recently had to settle an antitrust lawsuit about colluding with other schools about setting their financial aid packages. And financial aid really screws over the middle class, who is too rich to get a significant amount, but too poor to afford $93K a year without going deep into debt. And so honestly, I just think that it's elitist. It's elitist to have all these administrators and to charge this much for 1 year of college. And I think we need to open up more opportunities for regular, everyday Americans so that they can rise and make sure that the American dream still continues to persist.
Yeah, they're making these universities like the modern day palace at Versailles, and with all these administrators and all the accoutrements. Alex Shea, I want to thank you so much. You give me a lot of hope. It's so great to see a student with his head on straight at one of these universities. I don't recognize my alma mater. I was an undergrad at Columbia. It doesn't seem the same to me. We were left wing back then, but nothing like this. Alex, you give us a lot of hope. And everyone, check this guy out. This is a journalist of the present, but certainly of the future. Have a great rest of the week. And by the way, I have a book recommendation for you and everyone. For more on the ridiculous administrative bloat at our universities and colleges, check out the book, The Faculty Lounges by Naomi Schaefer Riley. It's called The Faculty Lounges and Other Reasons Why You Won't Get the Education You Paid For. This is a book that you can get on Amazon. Naomi Schaefer Riley wrote it more than 10 years ago. She was ahead of her time. Check that book out. All right. Seriously, everyone, thank you so much. Again, Alex, for joining us. Have a great rest of your week. All right, coming up next, David Brody's going to join us to talk about a senator who ran for president just 5 years ago, and then he went AWOL, but now he's trying to get our attention again. We'll talk about him when we come right back. looking live at New London, Connecticut. Hey, I'm going to make everyone in the rest of the country mad right now. Connecticut says they have the best pizza in America. Everyone else fight it out right now. Welcome back to American Sunrise Early Edition. I'm Jake Novak. David Brody joins me here. And you know what's good about David Brody? He joins us every day. Unlike Senator Cory Booker from New Jersey, who has been basically AWOL for the last 5 years. Remember he ran for president? He was kind of the young guy's favorite. Yeah, well, then he went AWOL for the next. It's not like New Jersey doesn't have any issues or anything. I mean, the guy, he and Kirsten Gillibrand. By the way, she also ran for it. She was from New York, just next door. She also ran for president. Never heard from her again. Now suddenly he's decided he wants to be heard. He spoke all night on the Senate floor, being very upset about Donald Trump. And David, here's my take on this: the Democrats have decided that they just haven't screamed loud enough. They're not crazy enough or manic enough about Donald Trump. They just need to do more nutty things. Now, this isn't that nutty. People have spoken all night in the Senate before for much better causes. But the last thing I'll say is when you have someone who knocks on your door and says, hey, you're not upset enough or crazed enough about something, close the door. Close it, because that's not a good way to start things.
Yeah, and where has nutty got them, Jake? It's got them in the outhouse, and it's gave Trump a mandate, right? So, I mean, it's gotten them. The more nuttier they get, the less popular they get with the American people. And there's a direct correlation in that. As I look here, as I'm coming on the air, what is it? 7:50. I gotta look at the time. 7:50. I can't even see that. 7:54 or something like that. Cory Booker is still speaking. He's going on hour 13 as we speak. And so, look, the record here, and it's not a filibuster, just so we're all clear. Filibuster means you're blocking legislation, not blocking anything. He's just bloviating at this point. So the record actually is Strom Thurmond. The old civil rights Strom Thurmond, anti-civil rights, I should say, Strom Thurmond guy, 24 hours and X amount of minutes. And then Ted Cruz actually comes in at 21 hours when he did his soliloquy against Obama's health care plan. So Cory Booker still got a long ways to go. Look, here's the bottom line, Jake. This is an audition to be Senate Minority Leader. Let's be very clear. It might also be an audition potentially for a 2028 run yet again by Cory Booker. I mean, they're leaderless at this point, so why not? Cory Booker looks in the mirror and says, I see President Booker right about now. You know what? You're not even Booker T. Washington. Okay, so stop. But look, bottom line is that that's what this is all about. It's all about grandstanding. It's all about the far left saying we need someone to speak for us. So Cory Booker says, hey, I'll do that. Yeah, because I believe all this stuff, because I'm a nutcase, but also because I see political motives at the end of the day here, for sure.
Yeah. Again, here comes Jake Novak, unemployable political consultant. Here are the two mistakes that he made. First, he briefly criticized President Obama about his treatment of Wall Street, if you remember, and then beat a huge retreat a day later and ran away from any kind of courageous stand. And then, of course, he voted for the Iran deal, even though he promised he wouldn't. That was the end of his career. I don't know what he's doing now. American Sunrise is coming up now. I know that. David is going to be in there with the crew. It's April Fool's Day, but there will be no fooling around. Join me tomorrow.
American Sunrise is a great way to start your morning. Join us Monday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern Time. We've got the news of the day and some compelling interviews that you don't want to miss. Here's what you missed from yesterday.
We want to talk a little bit more about this possibility of President Trump and a third term.
The president said, and I'm quoting here, there are methods which you could do it, but it's far too early to think about it.
Trump put it out in the atmosphere. I mean, it was already there, but the fact that President Trump actually is now talking about it, not ruling it out, makes it more of a legitimate story.
I kind of look at this chat right now a little bit prematurely. I want to make sure we hold control of the House. I want to make sure our midterms are 26 far off the way they should go. So the talk about a third term, that's happy talk right now. I'm focused on what we need to do in this 4 years.
Take a look at this tweet from the U.S. Border Patrol, the Del Rio sector down in Texas. Convicted murderer caught, is what it says. The Uvalde station agents made a significant arrest yesterday while performing train checks, apprehending an illegal alien with a second-degree murder conviction from 2012 in North Carolina. What?
illegal aliens coming into the country now need to be prosecuted. When I was an agent, and even before that, I was a United States probation officer that worked for the U.S. courts. We used to prosecute people for coming into the country illegally. Now, in this case, this guy's an aggravated felon with that murder conviction, meaning that he's going to do some serious time in federal prison for coming back illegally.
The state of Texas is booming with new business. If Texas were a country with a gross domestic product of $2.6 trillion last year, it would rank number 8 in the world.
There's no corporate income tax in Texas.
It is so beyond expensive to live in New York, besides the crime and whatever policies are going on with the ridiculous government, state government. It is to live, and certainly as a family, it's almost impossible at this point. So, I mean, Texas, go for it.
Over to Tesla now, where several acts of violence have been carried out because its founder, Elon Musk, is working with President Trump. What a crime. The new tolerance campaign is exposing the left's double standard when it comes to so-called tolerance by creating this. Look at that, the hate map, showing all of the far left groups that are instigating mayhem around America.
Burned down a Tesla dealership using Molotov cocktails. Note to the SPLC, if you think that there isn't leftist hate in the United States, just take one look at our map.
Ahead on American Sunrise, executive orders and the looming Trump tariffs. We're headed to the White House and Capitol Hill for reaction to both. And it's a story that, if it weren't true, it would be ridiculous. Woke California lawmakers want to honor the alleged CEO assassin Luigi Mangione with a new initiative. We absolutely cannot make this stuff up. That story and so much more is ahead as American Sunrise starts right now.
Good morning, America.
Welcome to American Sunrise.
Whether it's culture,
We have breaking news to share with you.
politics,
President Trump is joining us live now from Florida.
we've got you covered.
This is what it looks like to be a patriot.
We have to protect the American family.
The American dream is still alive.
I'm David Brody.
I'm Terrance.
And I'm Dr. Gina.
Good Good morning. I'm Allison Hans, in for a vacationing Dr. Gina, live from West Palm Beach. Let's bring in David Brody in Washington, D.C., and Terrance Bates in our Denver newsroom. Good morning, gentlemen.
Allison, good morning.
Good morning.
How you doing? Well, I don't know. Well, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great.
Good.
Thanks for asking.
Very good.
Look at me, Allison. I'm marvelous. Absolutely marvelous.
Terrance, look at you. Terrance looks like he should be down here in West Palm. Is that a linen jacket? I mean, hey, let's go for cocktails after the show.
The fact that you're bringing up cocktails and we're literally a minute and a half into the show, this is going to be a great show, folks. I can tell you that now. It's going to be a great show.
Well, guys, I don't know if you saw Kid Rock in the Oval Office yesterday. It was phenomenal. He came dressed for the occasion, Terrance.
Yeah, those executive orders, of course, were signed. You can see Kid Rock there. Interestingly, though, what you're watching here, President Trump signing an executive order, basically ending ticket price gouging and scalping for live entertainment. Kid Rock kind of pushed this initiative, and President Trump now getting on board, David.
I said, what? The only thing when I saw that visual, all I thought Evel Knievel was dead. I had no idea that Evel Knievel made it to the White House, but I'm dating myself with Evel Knievel. But yeah, that was quite the look, quite the look. I don't think I could get away with that.
No, it looks like he was about to be shot out of a cannon. It was fabulous. And you know what was really funny is that after he signed the tickets and President Trump was going through other issues, Kid Rock was still standing there right next to the president, like he was overseeing all the other issues of the day. It was fabulous.
You know, when you've got your 5 minutes of fame, even though it's Kid Rock, so I'm sure he's got a little bit more, but when you've got your moment, you've got to take full advantage of it. Don't let anyone move you out. But look, the reality is it was a very busy day for President Trump. He signed a number of executive orders. Another one was aimed to attract domestic and foreign investment here in the United States by streamlining and modernizing the regulatory process. And guys, that also goes hand in hand with some of the upcoming tariffs tomorrow. That's really President Trump's goal, is to get more manufacturing here and to spur manufacturing and business here in the United States, guys.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Liberation Day, as they call it, we'll see. It might be Trepidation Day as well. I mean, let's be honest. We just don't know. We don't know what's ahead for sure. By the way, speaking about what's ahead, if I can just quickly check in with my ego for a second. Caroline Levitt, the White House press secretary, and I had a chance to speak late last week at the White House. There she is. And we will have some of that interview, quite a bit of that interview, coming up here shortly in about 15, 20 minutes or so. So stay tuned for that. She's talking about the press, and she's talking about her faith, her Catholic upbringing, and her blue-collar roots. But in the meantime, I guess we're going to do some Bible verse and got to get to the day's news. Yes, Allison?
Sounds great. Let's check out today's Bible verse. It's from Proverbs 3:5-6, and it says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths." Well, turning now from the good book to Capitol Hill, where the issue this morning is Liberation Day and its looming effects on our economy. The clock is ticking, and tomorrow is the day. President Trump is expected to unveil new tariffs Tuesday on America's global trading partners. And it's being reported that behind closed doors in the West Wing and on Capitol Hill, officials are concerned that these new tariffs may trigger economic anxiety on a global scale. The president has signaled that more than $1 trillion in trade could be affected. And joining us now with a view from Capitol Hill is Congressman Mark Alford from the great state of Missouri. Welcome. Good morning, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing great, Allison. Thanks for having me on. Hello to David and Terrance as well.
Our pleasure.
Good morning.
Well, what are your colleagues in Congress saying as we await the president's plan at this point?
Well, look, I think tomorrow is going to be Liberation Day for America. I'm fully on board with these tariffs. I think it's a way to level the playing field. For too long, foreign countries have been taking advantage of our generosity as a nation. And we had a big teletown hall last night from right here in this office. I know some of my constituents who phoned in and listened in on social media platforms. They're concerned about the tariffs and the impact it may have on them. But this is going to be a short-term pain for a long-term gain. I know that sounds trite. I know the president's been saying this as well. But we have got to make the small sacrifices now so that we can stay afloat as a nation with $36.5 trillion in debt. If we don't do something to turn that around, we are going to be sunk as a nation.
So I 100% agree with you, Congressman, and I'm curious to get more information from that town hall you were talking about with your constituents, because we hear the term long-term gain, right? Short-term pain for long-term gain. Who likes long-term gain? Let's be honest. I mean, we live in a short-term world, whether you're a politician or whether you're someone, in your district, right? I mean, we want to see the results right away. And that's not the way the world works, sadly, by the way. I don't agree with it, but that's the truth. So you wonder how long this is going to take where, that short-term gain becomes maybe a couple months, then it becomes 6 months, then it becomes a year. And, what's the delineation line here? Because things need to get done in short order here.
Well, we as Americans tend to look at it that way. We like immediate gratification. We are addicted to cheap things made in China. That's been part of the problem all along, the trade imbalance. Look at a bodybuilder. I mean, I would love to have the body of a bodybuilder, but I'm not willing to go to the gym in the house gymnasium over in Rayburn and put in the hard work. But we as Americans are out of shape. I mean, we have gotten fat and lazy off of the immediate gratification that we have and cheap things, and we've got to get back to living within our budget, to making sure that we do take care of those who are truly in need. We're not going to cut Medicaid, Medicare, or Social Security, but we're going to kick people off who shouldn't be there, including, which Doge reported yesterday, some 2 million non-citizens on Medicaid. People are asking, how are you going to find $880 million a year to cut from Medicaid? That's how we're going to do it: waste, abuse, and fraud, and kicking people off who shouldn't be there.
So you've brought up a number of things that I want to kind of touch on. Yes, you have to find the fraud, you have to find the waste, and you have to find the abuse, and that's a great way to help us get closer to reducing our budget. You talked about the tariffs being another way of doing that as well. But it seems to me the big thing where we've really been out of control for decades right now in Congress is spending. And while you're addressing that, do you think that you and your colleagues are addressing spending aggressively enough?
Look, I'm on appropriations now, and I'm on 4 subcommittees, and we're going to go through these bills with a fine-tuned tooth comb, as far as I'm concerned. And I think the chairs of these subcommittees are on board. I know Tom Cole is the chair of appropriations. The authorizing committees are going to have to do their job and go through these programs, so that programs like USAID, where we saw a lot of crazy fat in that, and now that program's basically dead, that doesn't happen again. We've got to do a better job in Congress of making sure that the programs that we authorize and the programs that we appropriate and write the checks out to are good for the American people, and that any programs that we do outside of this nation only have to do with national security. That's why I'm in favor. I'm really pushing this. If we have any programs that pop up under the USAID kind of umbrella, but we've got to get these projects out there, they've got to be national security projects, national security investment projects.
Okay, Congressman. So the diet begins for all of us as a country tomorrow, right?
I need to get on the keto. So maybe our nation can get on the keto diet and cut the carbs when it comes to spending.
Okay, I need to get your reaction to this headline. This is unbelievable. Universities in Iran offers entry to pro-Hamas students deported from the U.S. The statement said Iran's universities are ready to accept students who are being expelled by U.S. immigration officials for showing sympathy for the Palestinian cause. Okay, Congressman, any bon voyage wishes to send to these students?
Yeah, don't let the door kick you in the butt on the way out. Hey, go over to Iran. I think that's probably where you belong. If you want to support Hamas, which Iran has been funding, if you want to support Hezbollah, which Iran has been funding, if you want to support the Houthis, which Iran has been funding, all with the $60.5 billion that Joe Biden released under that sanction program, then have at it. But I'm here to tell you, Iran is not going to get a nuclear weapon. It's open source information right now that we have 7 B-2 bombers in Diego Garcia, 3,726 miles from Tehran. And we're showing them that we mean business. We struck the Yemenis, the Houthis, and we continue to do that with our fighter squadron. And we are prepared to do what it takes to make sure that Iran never gets a nuclear weapon.
Congressman Mark Alford, thank you
Just
so much.
really quickly, I'm sorry, Allison,
Terrance,
before we go, because you're seeing there in the bottom of your screen, that is Cory Booker. He's been on this marathon speech in the Senate since late last night. I suspect you're at least aware of it, probably haven't watched it. Just quick thoughts, 10, 15 seconds.
It's a cheap way to run for Senate Majority Leader or Senate Minority Leader when they push Schumer over the edge. And I think that's a political stunt that he's doing. Look, he's talking about, he's lying again. You know, the Democrats do that. They gaslight and lie. They're talking about how Republicans are going to cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, and we're simply not doing that. Trump doesn't want it. We don't want it. The American people are safe.
Well, a political...
he's lying. He's out there lying on left and right, or actually far left, my bad. And then after that, specifically, you're right, he is running for Senate Minority Leader. That's what this speech is all about, and possibly in 2028 as well. Who knows? What?
Well, I think it's pretty outdated.
On the American taxpayer dime, get up there and run for something.
Yeah.
Get your profile out there.
Okay. Coming up, thank you, Congressman Mark Alford. Thank you so much for coming in this morning. We appreciate you, as always. Coming up, we check out the hottest headlines from the Wrap Newsroom with T. Bates. And later, a one-on-one with White House Press Secretary Caroline Levitt. In moments, a side of her we don't often get to see. It's ahead as American Sunrise continues. We'll be right back.
This news break is brought to you by AMAC, Association of Mature American Citizens.
Earlier, I should say, we read the most painful story.
Well, there he is. You're looking live at Senator Cory Booker from New Jersey. He's been, I won't say waxing poetic because there's been nothing poetic about it, but for 13 hours now, he has been, in essence, hijacking the Senate floor, talking about how horrible Trump's policies are. So in other words, he's been lying for 13 straight hours. Not easy to do We'll have more on that here in just a moment. Someone we do want to hear from, Caroline Levitt, the White House press secretary. I had a chance to speak with her at the White House late last week. We are going to hear, oh, there we are, strolling down the hall. We're going to talk to her specifically about her Catholic upbringing, lots of different things. Oh, her softball, how softball shaped her politics, which is interesting, and of course, her battles with the press. First, though, T. Bates standing by with the latest headlines from the Real America's Voice newsroom, sponsored by AMAC.
The Association of Mature American Citizens is the conservative voice for Americans 50 and older. AMAC is fighting for the values that you hold dear. Join today. Together, we can right the course of America.
Democrats are suing President Trump over one of his latest executive orders, which seeks to secure the country's elections. While I wish I could say this is an April Fool's joke, unfortunately it is reality. Monday's legal action is looking to block President Trump's order, saying that he exceeded his authority by requiring voters to prove that they are U.S. citizens and preventing states from counting mail-in ballots received after Election Day. The executive order also threatens to take away federal funding from states that don't comply with the presidential guidance. In their suit, lawyers for the Democratic National Committee write, quote, "The executive order seeks to impose radical changes on how Americans register to vote, cast a ballot, and participate in our democracy, all of which threaten to disenfranchise lawful voters and none of which is legal." A handful of voting rights groups also filed separate suits against the order on Monday. Meantime, polls are open in Florida's 1st and 6th congressional districts right now as voters are selecting their representatives in U.S. Congress. Today's special election is to fill seats vacated by Matt Gaetz and Mike Waltz, who both stepped down to take positions with the Trump administration. Gaetz ultimately didn't become President Trump's attorney general as expected, though. While both Trump-endorsed Republican candidates Jimmy Patronis and Randy Fine have pretty significant leads in the polls, they are running in traditionally strong Republican districts, and there is concern about how close the races are. Just yesterday, Florida GOP officials scrambled to put together a last-minute election ad for Fine, who is looking to replace Trump National Security Advisor Mike Waltz. There is concern that Fine isn't polling as high as state Republicans would like. Plus, he's been significantly out-fundraised by his Democrat opponent. Adding 2 more votes in the U.S. House is considered critical for House Republicans, who currently have just a 1-vote majority. And New Jersey Senator Cory Booker may be sleeping in a little bit later on this morning after delivering a marathon speech on the Senate floor. In fact, he is still speaking right now. That is him there on the bottom right side of your screen. The Democrats' remarks have been in protest of actions taken by the Trump administration. Cory Booker argues that President Trump has inflicted harm on America's safety, financial stability, and core foundations of democracy just in the first 71 days of his presidency.
I believe generations from now will look back at this moment and have a single question. Where were you? Where were you when our country was in crisis and when American people were asking for help? Help me. Help me. Did we speak up?
Now, Senator Booker started his speech last night at 7 o'clock, and you can see he is still speaking right now. Wow. See, he's kind of moving from side to side there a little bit. I wonder if his legs are tired or if he may have to urinate. It's been over 13 hours, so who knows. Anyway, we'll continue to monitor this for you throughout the morning. Coming up, on this April Fool's edition of American Sunrise, would you actually believe me if I told you that woke California lawmakers want to honor the alleged assassin who's accused of killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson? Well, you'll have to stick around to find out if it's a real story or if lawmakers in the Golden State are the actual joke. Next, though, David Brody goes one-on-one with one of politics' rising stars, White House Press Secretary Caroline Levitt. It's an interview you don't want to miss. Right now, though, a quick look at this day in history. It was was on this day in 1945 that U.S. ground forces invaded Okinawa, Japan during World War II. At the time, it was the largest amphibious assault of the Pacific theater. The fighting was fierce and Japanese forces refused to surrender, instead opting to fight to the death. That led to a high number of casualties on both sides. U.S. troops were also subjected to the largest amount of kamikaze attacks of the war. Taking the island was a strategic necessity for the Allies given its proximity to Japan, which made it a crucial strategic objective for the Allies. However, the Japanese were determined to defend it fiercely. Over 12,000 American soldiers, sailors, and Marines were killed or went missing during that battle. There were a total of 49,000 American casualties. More American Sunrise coming your way after this break.
London, Connecticut, as opposed to the old London. That's the new one. I don't really know what that means. Anyhow, welcome back, everybody, to American Sunrise. I'm David Brody. Caroline Levitt, she is a force of nature and, of course, a rising star on the political stage. As press secretary to President Trump, she has to handle her fair share of journalists that are often not fond of the administration. Caroline, also a mother who is juggling it all. And as you see there on the screen, I had a chance to sit down with her and get into more of the personal side of who she is and what makes her the standout press secretary that she has indeed become. We begin with her role as not press secretary, but mom to her beautiful 8-month baby boy, Nico. Have a look.
It's certainly challenging. There's no doubt about it. I think every working mother understands the demands, and no matter where you are or what you're doing, there is a sense of guilt. You feel like when you're with your baby, you should be focused on your job, and when you're at your job, you want to be with your baby. So there's always that pull, but just being present in the moment and prioritizing time, saying no when you have to say no to take care of your family is something I've had to learn the hard way in a very short amount of time. But I spend every second that I possibly can with my son when I'm home. On weekends and evenings, I try to make it home for bedtime as much as I can throughout the week and savoring those very special moments as well. And I'm very blessed to have a great support system, an incredible husband who's the best father to our little son, and my mother who comes to town quite often, and other help as well that can be there to nurture and to be there when I can.
Let me ask you, let's go down memory lane for a second, okay? You love your parents. Your parents, you know, they're hardworking, blue collar. I mean, it's a blue collar family from a blue collar town.
Yeah.
What did that teach you? How did that shape you as to who you are today?
It definitely taught me the value of hard work. You know, my parents are small business owners. Neither of them went to college, and they worked very hard to earn everything they had to provide for my brothers and me. You know, growing up, my dad was always working from 7 to 7, 7 days a week. Being a business owner, you don't have days off. And so I think that value of hard work and determination and drive was instilled in me at a very young age just by watching my parents work so hard to earn a living. And it carried with me through college and then, of course, now in my career as well.
Your Catholic education, you've talked about this before, about how it shaped who you are today. Tell us about that. How so? Because the Catholic education was very important. Your Catholicism growing up, God, church, very important to you.
Yes, my faith is incredibly important to me. I would argue now more than ever, being in a role that is very demanding and at times controversial, and there's a lot of public pressure and discussion online about who you are and your family, and you know, it could be difficult for someone who doesn't have faith, but with faith, all things are possible. And my Catholic education was a pivotal part of my upbringing. It definitely teaches discipline, is something you learn in Catholic schools. And then I obviously went to a Catholic college as well, St. Anselm in New Hampshire, which not only drove my faith further, but also introduced me to the world of politics and news.
Yeah. How did it drive your faith further, you think, at St. Anselm? You had challenges there, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. And just being in a community that embraces faith and talks about it openly and opens your eyes to it, and also being around fellow students and peers who aren't afraid to go to church on Sunday and talk about their faith openly is something that I think is helpful to anyone in their own faith journey.
Well, let's talk about St. Anselm for a second. All right, I was going through box scores of the college softball St. Anselm team. I was literally seeing, I saw you got a couple home runs.
They weren't very good.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I mean, you were in a lot of those games, and you were hitting, you had some home runs and the whole thing. I mean, you went there on a scholarship. Now you're in the rough and tumble world of politics. Talk about that. Yeah. Sports and politics. You could probably learn a lot of life lessons about politics from sports. Tell me a little bit about how that serves you maybe today.
100%. The game of softball and sports prepared me for the game of politics, no doubt about it. I was a competitive athlete growing up, not just softball. I played field hockey and played many different sports throughout my childhood, but did go to St. Anselm on a softball scholarship. And again, discipline, hard work, teamwork, and also competing against yourself to be the best that you can in athletics, I think has prepared me, especially for this job now. I can have a good briefing, but the next day I can go on television. I have to perform again, right? So every day is a new game in this job. And I think, being an athlete my whole life probably prepared me for this.
Well, she's definitely prepared. I went on to ask Caroline about the journalist that she deals with on a daily basis in the press room. And I asked her if political journalism is dead in America today. Have a look.
I think there are true journalists out there that still exist. They are few and far between. I think many people in the briefing room here are trying out for their next big show, and unfortunately it seems the legacy media, the big networks in this country, promote individuals who are liberal and have a bias against this president. There's no doubt about that. But the American people aren't buying that anymore. If you look at the ratings chart, liberal outlets are dying and have been forced to restructure their newsrooms and their lineup. The Washington Post, we applaud Jeff Bezos for the changes he's made because he was no longer selling newspapers because of the liberal bias that has had a chokehold on that paper in particular. So I think the media has had to take a look in the mirror, especially after President Trump's resounding victory on November 5th. And the American public sent a very strong message to the anti-Trump media that we don't listen to you. We believe in the truth, and we know that the president's policies were better for us than the past 4 years under the Biden-Harris administration. And that's why the American people reelected this president. And it's an honor, frankly, to fight against some of those very hostile media forces every day on behalf of the president and truth.
So how do you go about, like, you're looking out into the crowd there, in the press briefing room and everything. I mean, how are you kind of deciding who you're going to pick? You know, I mean, because you pick different people. Some people you pick kind of routinely, but other people you just kind of be around the room. How does that kind of work? Is that kind of impromptu or what?
It's completely impromptu. Sometimes I'll know who will be sitting particularly in the front rows based on who I've seen throughout the day. In the morning, they come up to my office to ask questions, but I just walk in there and pick on whomever I feel compelled to choose, and we go from there.
The reviews on you, and even well, there's always going to be critics, okay, but even the friendly reviews and even people that are lukewarm on you say you're doing a really good job. What is it? Why do you believe that is the case? Why do you think that you have arrived in this moment for such a time as this? Like, what's going on? What's the DNA behind all of that?
Well, it's a lot of preparation, and I don't just walk out there and start talking. There's a lot of studying and reading and prep that goes into the briefings in particular, and every day, even on non-briefing days. It's constant reading and keeping up with the news and talking to the president and understanding where his head is at on the top issues of the day. And it's a great team. We have an incredible team here at the White House, and many of us worked on the campaign together, so there's a bit of a battle rhythm to our movement here, and having fun as well, and keeping it all in perspective, and not getting complacent, and knowing that every day, as I said, is a new game and a new challenge, and just putting our best foot forward.
When you call on reporters, are you already kind of gaming out in your head, oh, okay, I know where they're going to go today? Do you kind of think that through?
Oftentimes the questions are predictable. If you just look at the MSDNC Chiron, you'll know where some of the reporters in that room are going to go.
Right. Let me read you something that Peter Baker from the New York Times, I'm sure one of your favorites, has said, but let me just read this real quick, and I want to get your reaction. He says this about the White House press shop, quote, "It's clear they're sending a message. If we write or broadcast something they don't like, we can be punished by having access to the pool cut off. There's nothing subtle about it." You say what to that?
That is utter fallacy and completely ridiculous. We have expanded the pool to new voices, independent journalists, podcasters, social media content creators, while continuing to invite legacy media outlets like the one Peter Baker works for, the New York Times, are still in the briefing room, still have access to the press pool, and we are going to continue to move forward with this method. We have received thousands of applications of legitimate independent journalists across the country who were never respected by the White House Correspondents Association. And the privilege of covering the President of the United States on Air Force One or in the Oval Office should not be granted by or chosen by a few elitist journalists in Washington, D.C. That privilege belongs to the American public. And so we are ensuring that new media voices who are responding to the media habits of the American people are included in this process, and it's been phenomenally successful.
And Caroline has been phenomenally successful as well. We want to thank, by the way, the press secretary, of course, for facilitating our conversation, and of course, everybody involved with that interview. We appreciate you all at the White House. All right, more ahead on American Sunrise in a moment.
live shot of Paterson, New Jersey. We are looking at the Paterson Falls. Very cool shot this morning on a Tuesday morning. Welcome back to American Sunrise. I'm Allison Hans, in for a vacationing Dr. Gina. Thank you so much for joining us today. Time now for today's health news, sponsored by the Wellness Company. Under the microscope today, a breakthrough treatment to combat high cholesterol. Thousands of lives could be saved by combining statins with another cholesterol-lowering drug. A study published in the journal Mayo Clinic Proceedings showed that when the drug ezetimibe was combined with a high-dose statin to reduce levels of bad cholesterol, or LDL-C, there was a 19% reduction in the risk of death from any cause. 19% is a significant number. Ezetimibe is a second-line lipid-lowering drug which works to prevent cholesterol absorption in the intestines. Now, scientists say the combination therapy should be considered the gold standard of treatment for patients who have already had a heart attack and could prevent thousands of deaths every year. Until now, there had been inconsistent findings about whether or not combined cholesterol-lowering therapy should be given to high-risk patients immediately, even before they suffer a heart attack or stroke. Now it looks like we are getting our answer. Well, it is a new day in America and a new administration in Washington, D.C. There's a lot of excitement and optimism about the future, but the reality is there's a lot of work to do, especially when it comes to fixing our broken healthcare system. The truth is that the forces that are responsible for breaking our healthcare system aren't going to simply go away. The challenges our system faces won't disappear overnight. Now, more than ever, you need to be prepared, and that's where the Wellness Company comes in. Their doctors are medical professionals that you can trust, and their line of prescription medical kits are the gold standard when it comes to keeping you safe and healthy. Whether it's the medical emergency kit, the contagion kit, the first aid kit, or the travel kit, these prescription kits contain an assortment of life-saving medications and guidebooks to assist in the proper use of these medications. From the flu to strep throat, from COVID to the bird flu, from a trip to the beach to a trip overseas, the Wellness Company has a prescription kit designed to keep you and your family safe. Make America healthy again starts at home. Do your part to protect the health of you and your family. Go to twc.health/RAV today and order. That's twc.health/RAV and use the promo code RAV to save 10%. And joining us now with further insight into our health is Peter Gillooly, the CEO of the Wellness Company. Peter, good morning to you and welcome back.
Good morning, Allison.
Okay, Peter, let's begin. The withdrawal of former Representative Weldon's nomination to head the CDC was disappointing to many medical freedom advocates. The administration recently tapped Susan Menares to head the CDC, and reaction has been decidedly mixed. What are your thoughts on the matter?
Yeah, Menares is a lifetime bureaucrat, also not an MD. That is now in charge of the CDC. She's been the acting director since Trump was put in office back in January. People are disappointed, and understandably so. Menares has been an advocate of the vaccine in the past. If there's a silver lining here, I would say first it's that she's obedient. She did follow direct orders, which is great to see in federal agencies now from the president when it came to removing LGBTQ websites from the CDC. But the big thing that I would remind you as an American is health starts at home. You make your decisions about the health of yourself and your family, not the CDC. So it doesn't really matter who's in the CDC. People come and go, but we really need to be personally responsible for our health.
That's such a good point. We have to take that mind shift into account. Well, we are a couple of months into President Trump's term and 6 weeks into RFK Jr.'s tenure at HHS. So it is obviously early. How would you rate the administration on health care reform so far?
I think we're making progress. It's going to be slow going. It takes a long time to drain the swamp, as we know, and there are hundreds of thousands of people in HHS that need to all be evaluated and realigned with President Trump's strategy. So I'm really encouraged by the moves that RFK has made around food specifically, we at the Wellness Company think that food can either be the best medicine or the slowest poison. And I think we've been poisoning ourselves in America for so long. So it's really encouraging to see him go after things like dyes in our food, because I think that's going to make the biggest difference, Allison. We were looking at some ingredient facts yesterday for something as simple as Fruit Loops. There are 40 ingredients for Fruit Loops in the U.S., and there's only 5 in Europe. Why is that? Why are we putting this crap in our body? So I think there's a lot of work that still remains to be done just on the food supply, and we're not even talking about medicine yet.
No, he's really making that point, food as medicine. It's definitely opening my eyes. So I'd love to know, what have been the biggest successes of the administration, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think right now we're seeing a lot of inquiries into vaccines, right? And I think those are going to be something that we're going to see even more so over the next 1 to 2 years as RFK really starts ramping up his inquiries into why have we been administering so many vaccines to the American people. It's been an issue that he's been so vocally advocating now for decades of his career. And I think we're going to see a lot of good come from it. So I'm really encouraged about some of the people he's appointed, like Jay Bhattacharya, that are really going to help lead this charge and bring a more science-based backing to everything that we do when it comes to medicine in America.
Yes, so happy that Jay Bhattacharya is there. Well, one last thing. What are the things the president and Secretary Kennedy could and should do to improve our healthcare system?
Bring science back. I think that for too long we've seen that Big Pharma has had their fingers on the scales of studies when it comes to what the FDA is approving. Look at Operation Warp Speed, for instance. I mean, it's very easy to present something as safe and effective when you're the one supplying the data. So I think if we're actually insisting that our drug companies provide valid scientific studies and prove that the drug that they're trying to get approval for actually is doing what they claim it does and do it safely, I think we're going to have much, much better outcomes. And Secretary Kennedy has been a very, very strong advocate for bringing science back into healthcare, and I'm really encouraged about that.
And I don't think that's a big ask, so I think that's pretty good. Well, Peter Gillooly, thank you so much for coming in this morning. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Coming up, are you worried about what your children and grandchildren are watching on TV? In a moment, we'll turn you on to a faith-based show for kids with biblical truths. You don't want to miss it. But next, it's a story that, if it weren't true, it would be ridiculous. Woke California lawmakers want to honor the alleged CEO assassin Luigi Mangione with a new initiative. We cannot make this stuff up. We will be back in just 2 minutes.
Welcome back. I'm American Sunrise correspondent Emily Finn. Time now to stay awake, not woke, brought to us by the 1775 Coffee Company. Every morning, you've got a choice. Start your day with coffee that stands for American values, or keep giving your money to woke corporations that despise everything we believe in. 1775 coffee is roasted right here in Florida, fresh, bold, and tested to be mold-free, so you're not drinking stale corporate sludge. And believe me when I say it, it's darn good coffee. They're making coffee great again because, let's face it, the corporate coffee giants sold out a long time ago. Their coffee is stale, bitter, and mass-produced in factories that couldn't care less about quality. 1775 is different. Small batch roasted, taste tested by people who actually love this country and shipped directly to your door. Prefer K-Cups? They've got you covered, bold, smooth, and ready to brew. Want a brain boost? Grab their Vitality Mushroom Blend. It's packed with lion's mane and cordyceps for a clean, focused boost without the additives. And if you want the real deal, Dark Roast hits harder than a Trump rally in the Rust Belt. Go to 1775coffee.com/RAV and use the code RAV for 10% off your order. Fuel up with freedom and start your morning right. All right, well, now that we are caffeinated, it is time to stay awake, not woke. And what's woke, you ask? Far-left California lawmakers who are attempting to honor alleged CEO assassin Luigi Mangione with a radical new initiative targeting the healthcare industry. The proposed law, named the Luigi Mangione Access to Healthcare Act, is sparking controversy, facing criticism for legitimizing violence as a form of political protest. The proposed legislation would implement sweeping restrictions to health insurance companies and would effectively eliminate the ability of insurers to control costs. This comes after just months of when Mangione allegedly shot and killed the CEO of United Healthcare, Brian Thompson, on the streets of New York City. Following a nationwide manhunt, Mangione was arrested days later at a Pennsylvania McDonald's, charged with murder as an act of terrorism. He now faces life in prison. While Mangione has pleaded not guilty to the 11 federal and state charges against him, he has become an unlikely hero among small groups on the left, with social media users referring to him as, quote, the saint of healthcare justice. The proposed legislation in California would make it a felony to delay, deny, or modify any medical procedure or medication recommended by a physician, which is a nod to the words that Mangione allegedly inscribed on the bullets used to kill Thompson. Let's bring in Allison, David, and Terrance for more here. I mean, you guys, this is quite outrageous. The draft measure is now under official review at the California Attorney General's office. Do you really think it's actually going to get passed, especially with his name on it?
It shouldn't. It shouldn't. No. It wouldn't surprise me if it does, or if it at least gains a little traction. It may not become law, but it wouldn't surprise me if it gains a little traction given the audience, California. But it shouldn't. The fact that we're even talking about this on April Fool's Day, it sounds like an April Fool's joke, David.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure. And here's the other thing, you know, California, right? Woke and all of this crazy stuff. And then you get this type of bill in his name, whereas you look at Trump and what they're doing. And what do you get? The Lake and Riley Act, right? I mean, the difference between the two, I think the juxtaposition, I think is noteworthy here. Allison.
Yeah, I mean, they have to lose the name. That it's so offensive. It just. I can't even deal with it. I mean, the actual content, some of the items under discussion, possibly we could look at, but the name, ridiculous.
Yeah, not in his honor. Certainly hard to wrap your mind around that. Thank you for the discussion, you guys. Now, coming up, with Disney slipping deeper and deeper into woke ideology, a Christian company is offering a conservative alternative in the children's entertainment space. If you have kids or love someone else's, you'll want to see this. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to American Sunrise. It's time now for our moment of faith, brought to us by Lee Greenwood and the God Bless the USA Bible. In focus today, with Disney and other woke media corporations pushing progressive ideology onto our children, actor and producer Kirk Cameron is debuting a new show designed to inspire American families to fight back against the current culture war. The show, Iggy and Mr. Kirk, started streaming recently on BravePlus.com, a Christian publishing company. The platform is streaming classic, like-minded children's shows like Bob the Builder and Strawberry Shortcake, giving parents a worry-free option for family entertainment. Cameron says he hopes his new show will help families engage in meaningful conversations on pressing cultural topics.
I pray a lot about it because it does bother me. I am human. But it's not the room God wants me to be in, or he would put me there. You know, I've said it in my speech, and I stand firm to it. You know, when God closes a door, I used to stand there jiggling the handle. I'd try to pick the lock. I'd beat it down. I was going to get a buzzsaw out and saw that door down. And finally I realized, oh my goodness, if I just open my eyes, look around, and faithfully walk through the door he's placed right in front of me, boy, how great and easy my life could be. Maybe it's not meant for me to do certain things anymore, despite how much I still want to do them.
Yeah. And that was Lee Allen, who is also part of the show. There's a big group that's behind this fabulous project. One of those people is Kirk's partner on the project, Trent Talbot, the CEO of Brave Books. And he's joining us right now. Thank you so much for being here this morning, Trent.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Oh, our pleasure. Well, tell us a little bit more about Iggy and Mr. Kirk.
Man, it's a brand new show that is TV the way it used to be. So, you know, it teaches wholesome values with every episode. Our books, Brave Books, they come to life in a beautiful animated segment of the show, and it's definitely gives off those Mr. Rogers vibes, but in a modern way. And you know, we launched it last Thursday, and parents and families are absolutely loving it.
That is so cool. How did you get into all of this and start Brave? And why is this all so important to you to get this type of content out there to children? What were you seeing?
Well, Brave Books was founded right after my daughter Charlotte was born in the summer of 2020. That's like peak COVID craziness. I was a happily practicing ophthalmologist at the time, but saw the landscape of children's content and decided that parents really needed a brand that they could trust with their kids' imaginations to not only entertain them and distract them for 30 minutes, but to build their character while doing so. And so we started off with books, and we've been doing that for about 4 years now. But we felt it was time to take our books to screen in this innovative way with Iggy and Mr. Kirk. And then we were thinking, you know, there's the perfect platform doesn't exist out there for this show to live on. And so we decided to create Brave Plus, where we have Iggy and Mr. Kirk, and then a lot of classics as well as new shows that we think families will fall in love with. And, you know, there's obviously a lot of distrust out there right now when it comes to programming that our kids are watching. And we feel it's time for companies like Brave Books to step up, and that's what we're doing.
Well, what would your advice to parents be in terms of monitoring what their kids have access to? Because, I mean, you have so many parents who are so busy all the time, and it's like they want to give that iPad over to, you know, and say screen time, and then they might throw it over to something like Miss Rachel, which apparently is having issues of its own. So how do you monitor and check everything out?
That's an impossible task because we have lives as parents. I've got 4 kids of my own, and you can't vet everything. So you have to monitor companies and the values that they stand behind, and then decide who you're going to trust. And so at Brave, we think that we are a very trustworthy option. And, you know, for parents or grandparents, I would say go to braveplus.com, get Brave Plus, download it, and then you can just hand your kids the remote. I mean, it's that safe. And we have an extremely thorough vetting process. To me, we've got some amazing content. Iggy, over 50 titles, but it's really not about what's on the platform. It's about what's not on the platform.
Sounds like a wonderful option. Thank you so much, Trent Talbot, for being here this morning. We will be back with the second hour of American Sunrise in just minutes. Please stick around.
Introducing the limited edition God Bless the USA Bible, inspired by Lee Greenwood's hit song and the most recognized patriotic anthem in America, God Bless the USA. The God Bless the USA large print leather-bound King James Bible also contains America's founding documents, the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, and the Pledge of Allegiance, along with a handwritten chorus to Lee Greenwood's song, God Bless the USA. With its large print and slim design, this Bible invites you to explore God's Word anywhere, anytime. The God Bless the USA Bible makes the perfect gift and cherished family heirloom keepsake to pass on to future generations. Designed for an easy reading experience in the trusted King James Version translation, this large print Bible is perfect to take to church, Bible study, work, and for traveling. Order yours today at GodBlessTheUSABible.com.
Good morning, America.
Welcome to American Sunrise.
Whether it's culture,
we have breaking news to share with you.
Politics.
President Trump is joining us live now from Florida.
We've got you covered.
This is what it looks like to be a patriot.
We have to protect the American family.
The American dream is still alive.
I'm David Brody.
I'm Terrance.
And I'm Dr. Gina.
Welcome back, everybody, to the second hour of American Sunrise. I'm David Brody, coming to you from the deep state. Be careful. I'm coming to get you. Let's bring in Allison Hans in West Palm Beach. She's filling in for a vacationing Dr. G.T. Bates in Denver. You're not vacationing, T. You're right there. That's a nice suit. I'm sorry. I'm distracted by your suit. I'll be honest with you. It's like squirrel. That's all I'm thinking about.
Terrance looks very handsome this morning.
Well, thank you. I'm going to wear this suit every day now from here on out.
Yeah, very dapper. Not like Jake Tapper, but you're very dapper. Very dapper.
Well, I appreciate it. Hey, guys, let's get right to it because President Trump, of course, calling tomorrow Liberation Day. He is set to impose sweeping reciprocal tariffs against America's trade partners. The commander-in-chief initially threatening dollar-for-dollar tariffs on countries that have tariffs against us. The president says tariffs could get companies to move their manufacturing to the United States and create jobs right here in the U.S. In the meantime, he admits that prices could go up in the short term. For more, let's bring in White House Deputy Press Secretary Anna Kelly to talk all about this and so much more. Anna, welcome to the show. Good morning.
Good morning. It's so great to be here.
It is good to have you. So let's start the conversation here. The big announcement will obviously come tomorrow. It will become official. But what industries and sectors does President Trump plan to target with these tariffs?
Well, I don't want to get ahead of the president, but what I will say is President Trump is finally holding these foreign countries accountable for not just the past 4 years, but truly decades of unfair trading practices. You have countries like Japan enforcing a 700% tariff on American rice, countries like India tariffing American agricultural products by 100%. I don't want to preview the exact announcement. I will let the president speak on that. But what I will say is after these decades of unfair trading practices, truly ripping off American farmers, manufacturers, workers. We are finally leveling the playing field because we know here in America that our farmers, manufacturers, workers can compete with the best in the world if given a playing field. That is what this president is delivering tomorrow.
President Trump has said that there may be short-term pain, but that it's worth it for the long-term gain. Peter Navarro saying that the tariffs are going to raise about $600 billion annually. Can you put all of this into real perspective for just regular, average, everyday Americans who are wondering, okay, am I going to have to pay more for some of the basic things that I'm so used to?
Well, I know you guys talked a little bit earlier about this investment that is coming into America. That investment is already paying dividends. We're seeing companies like Stellantis investing $5 billion into the U.S. economy. Other car companies who are directly responding to these tariffs saying, we know that this president is going to hold us accountable for just assembling cars, vehicles, products in America, because here in this White House, we want all products to be fully manufactured and assembled here in America. That's everything from the hubcaps to the engines of these cars. That is agricultural products. That is manufacturing products. Those investments are already coming in because these companies, number one, they want to be part of this pro-business climate that this president is creating, and they don't want to be affected by these tariffs. We are already seeing this investment roll in. It's going to create jobs. It's going to help Americans. And in the meantime, this president is lowering costs just like he did in his first term.
So I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. She's having to defend her trip to El Salvador last week after receiving some backlash for touring the infamous prison there. Listen to this. I'm sure you've heard it, but we want our viewers to hear it as well, and then we'll talk on the other side.
We have deported over 120 people that are on the known terrorist watch list out of this country, over 800 TDA members, and over 100,000 different arrests have been made of criminals that are out of this country. Every single family that can identify with Laken Riley's family, Jocelyn Nungary's family, people who were devastated by these criminals are thankful that they're gone, and President Trump is on the right side of history.
Really quickly, your response to all of the criticism the administration is getting over its policies relative to deportation.
Well, let's be clear. A lot of this, any criticism is coming from Democrats who are upset that President Trump won and he is delivering on his mandate to deport these violent, dangerous gang members, convicted pedophiles, rapists, murderers. He is deporting those individuals from this country. So the only people that I think are upset about that are Democrats that are upset they lost, and these activist judges who want to impede on the separation of powers and really run for offices themselves. But guess what? This president received a mandate from the American people. The American people do not want these violent gang members invading our communities. Remember, these Tren de Aragua gang members were the murderers of innocent 12-year-old Jocelyn Nungary in Texas. They have taken too many lives. President Trump is saying enough is enough. And guess what? Those policies are overwhelmingly popular. He is delivering safer streets for Americans across the country.
White House Deputy Press Secretary Anna Kelly, we appreciate you joining us this morning. Always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much.
All right, let's get you over to David Brody now.
Thank you, T. Great interview. For more on the tariffs issue, let's bring in another great interview, because that's Editor-in-Chief of Just the News, John Solomon. John, always good to see you. You've got the wisdom of Solomon. What are you hearing about these latest rounds of tariffs that are coming tomorrow? Some calling it Liberation Day. There could be called Trepidation Day. Who knows exactly what's going to happen?
Well, listen, I think the president will announce tomorrow how much more commitments he's gotten from foreign companies or American companies producing things overseas coming back to the United States. He teased this yesterday, saying it's closing in on $5 trillion since he took office on January 20th. That is a massive influx into our economy, and it proves that tariffs do have an impact in terms of insourcing, returning American jobs and American manufacturers to American soil. The number that Peter Navarro and that you guys mentioned a few minutes ago with Anna is they estimate the economic impact on the economy will be $600 billion. If you back that out to countries that currently don't have tariffs, it works out to about a 20% tariff worldwide. Now, that's not how these tariffs are going to work. They're going to go country by country. So if someone's got 100% tariff on rice, we're going to put 100% tariff on their rice. But I think the average will be about a 20% tariff across the world. And there's a very simple explanation the president will say to anyone who complains. Just move your jobs here. We'll gladly get rid of those tariffs. And I think you'll see the president not only use Liberation Day to announce this, but to set the economic vision, the economic opportunity that these tariffs are going to produce. And I think that was what Liberation Day is really about. It isn't about the announcement of the specific tariffs. It's about the long-term economic vision of making America able to create its own manufacturing base after 2 or 3 decades of a global economy where jobs and money and capital left our country, and we didn't get anything in return from the countries who benefited from us.
Zero. Okay. Also, John, Arizona Congressman Andy Biggs is also joining the efforts to impeach Judge James Boasberg, who ruled against the Trump administration for using the Alien Enemies Act to deport alleged gang members. Now, Biggs says he believes Boasberg overstepped his authority and reached outside his mandate. John, what more can you tell us about this?
This is a very novel idea, and I will expect that particularly the conservative wing of the Republican Party is going to push this hard. This is actually impeachment without impeachment. What Andy Biggs is proposing is that they not have to go through an impeachment that requires a trial and 2/3 conviction from the senators in the Senate who aren't going to do that, but rather to just interpret the Constitution literally. The Constitution says judges may serve as long as they are in good behavior. He is going to argue that Judge Boasberg stepped out of good behavior with personal conflicts of interest, with inappropriate interpretations of the Constitution in prior court rulings, and therefore he can be removed for not meeting the standard of good behavior, and it can be a simple majority vote in both chambers. The very novel idea is getting a lot of attention today. Number one story on Just the News right now. People are really fascinated by the fresh thinking that Andy Biggs has brought here. Now, will it happen? Probably not. There's probably not enough votes in the Republican caucus right now, but it does send a message to judges everywhere that if you're going to step outside, there is a growing temperature of frustration in Congress. At some point, that might reach a majority.
Hey, John, I want to talk about the special elections in Florida and Wisconsin. But first, there's political theater that's been playing out overnight in the Senate chambers. Cory Booker going for hours upon hours upon hours. I figure you had something to say about that. So let's start there, and then we'll get to the special elections. Your thoughts on the Cory Booker thing?
Yeah, listen, we got an old-fashioned filibuster. We haven't had one in a long time since maybe Ted Cruz and Rand Paul did it a decade ago. His goal is to try to show the rest of the Democrats we need to fight. Now, is he going to eventually block the president's agenda long term? No. But for the short term, it is an effort by Cory Booker to reinvigorate a party that has had no direction, no fight, and really no message since the election. So I think that this is an internal messaging tactic for him. At some point, he won't be able to sustain it. He'll quit, and the filibuster will end. Now, that said, there is a lot of motion among Democrats in these special elections. They want to keep the Wisconsin Supreme Court in liberal hands, maybe make it even a little bit more liberal with the candidate they're putting forward. Elon Musk and President Trump have invested a lot there to not only get that Supreme Court race over, but also to get voter ID instituted in Wisconsin, which would be a big win, particularly for a state that allows same-day registration. For the few states you can register the morning you go to vote. Voter ID would vastly improve the security and confidence of voters here. Then in Florida, you got 2 Republican districts. One is rather safe. You don't have to worry about Matt Gaetz' district. Mike Waltz's district is a little bit more concerning. The polling numbers are a little tighter. We had State Senator Randy Fine on the show last night. He talked about, listen, it's all going to come down. I can keep the seat. We just got to get our vote out today. And there's a massive push in the last 3 or 4 days to get out the vote operation that you wouldn't normally have to run in that district. But Democrats are put a lot of money, tens of millions of dollars, into 2 districts where they don't normally have a fighting chance, hoping to catch the Trump team by surprise. Right now, if I had to predict, I think both Florida races will stay there. Wisconsin's going to be too close to call on both of those initiatives, and we'll probably be still wondering in the morning what happened in Wisconsin.
Special elections are so volatile. They're very unpredictable. So, John, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks. Good to be with you guys. Thanks.
All right, coming up, the Trump administration carrying out more deportation flights. We have the latest on that. But first, President Trump says he thinks TikTok may be sold by the Saturday deadline. The latest when American Sunrise returns after this.
Welcome back to American Sunrise. I'm Emily Finn. It is great to have you with us this morning. Time now to drain the swamp. And this morning we are flushing out the Chinese influence over TikTok. President Trump says a sale of TikTok by the Chinese company ByteDance will be coming before the Saturday deadline. Trump says there are a lot of potential buyers for TikTok, and he would like to see TikTok remain alive. Reuters is reporting that private equity firm Blackstone is considering making a small minority investment in TikTok, and there is that deadline for Saturday for TikTok to be sold, or else it could be going dark. Let's bring in David, Allison, and Terrance for more on this. I'm reminded of, we just went through this a couple months ago back in January, where TikTok actually thanked President Trump for saving them back then with that Supreme Court decision. So what do you guys think is going to happen at this point? I mean, I think this is a great move for TikTok to be safer for Americans to use.
Well, I think President Trump became a very big fan of TikTok by the end of the election because there was so much attention and he was able to bring in all those young voters and so many new voters. So I think with his stamp of approval and support, I feel confident that something's going to get done, and I think it should be done. So I'm all for TikTok, and let's go.
Yeah, there are a couple of things. I mean, first of all, the fact that he would kind of publicly say that about the deadline and that there was going to be a deal. I mean, he's not going to do that if a deal is not going to be reached. And he's also got another card to play, which is that if for some reason the deal is not made by April 5th, which is a Saturday, then he'll have 30 days to extend it. So my guess is they could even extend it and there'll be a deal. It kind of gets into the whole issue of TikTok and, you know, are you on it or you're not? Are the Chinese taking, you know, everything about, you know, all your information? I get the contours of the argument, but hey, I'm on TikTok. You know what? Look, go ahead. Let them take my stuff. What do I care? You know, I'll be dead soon anyhow. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just playing around. Terrance.
Wow. Okay, that took a turn, David.
A dark turn, a very dark turn, actually.
Yeah, it took a little dark turn there, brother. The reality is, I suspect a deal will be reached, but the bigger picture here and the real context is, and it's already been put in place in most agencies, the government just needs to limit access to the app on government phones and computers and that kind of thing. That's where the real damage can be done. If someone in their private life wants to engage in TikTok and have that, fine, let them have it. But let's make sure that we're protecting our government agencies and our government devices and not keeping TikTok on that so that they can't potentially be compromised. I think that's really the bigger picture, and that's where the focus should be.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is an aspect of this that I don't think a lot of people really consider is the business aspect. There's a lot of people that run businesses on TikTok, and so if that goes dark and is shut down, that's a lot of people that are going to be losing out on some money. I know we've interviewed people on Real America's Voice, voicing concerns about this very topic. So appreciate the discussion, you guys. We'll be certainly keeping a close eye on this Saturday deadline to see what does happen with TikTok. Be sure to follow Real America's Voice on TikTok as well. Now, coming up on American Sunrise, border encounters have plummeted since President Trump retook the White House. How do border agents feel on the ground now? We ask a top official next on American Sunrise.
Have been watered. We have come treading our path through the blood of the slaughtered.
This is a live look at the Senate floor where New Jersey Senator Cory Booker is continuing to hold court. He's been speaking since 7 o'clock last night, and as you can see, he is still speaking right now. Technically, it is not a filibuster because he's not holding up any policy or nominations. He's just out there talking, and a lot of people are calling this simply political theater. Unfortunately, we're watching it all unfold there in the Senate chambers. In the meantime, we're getting ready for the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange. It's going to ring here in about 8 minutes or so. Right now, all of the major indices remaining down. Dow, S&P 500, and NASDAQ are all in the red. A lot of people believing that news about President Trump's upcoming tariffs, the fact that people are waiting those specifics, that's part of what's impacting the market. So, of course, we'll continue to monitor it all for you throughout the day. But now, let's get you over to David. Good morning, David.
I appreciate it. Good morning, Terrance.
By the way, feel free to go for the next 13 or 14 hours if you'd like. Feel free. I'll take a break. I've got some things I need to do anyway.
No, that's good. No, I'm good. I need to take a nap. That's what I'm going to do, which is what most people are doing as they listen to Cory Booker. But that's a separate issue. All right. The Trump administration carried out more deportations of suspected Tren de Aragua and MS-13 gang members over the past weekend. Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced that there were 17 deportations a few days ago. Rubio also said that none of the removals were done under the Alien Enemies Act. Instead, the deportations were done under other immigration statutes, and it comes, of course, after Judge James Boasberg issued the injunction against the use of the Alien Enemies Act. The Supreme Court is considering whether to hear that case. For more, let's bring in the Vice President of the National Border Patrol Council, Art Del Cueto. Art, great to have you on the show. Look, so here's the deal. So they send 17 folks there over the weekend to El Salvador, and they were gang members with either convictions or at least pending charges on crimes like drug possession, theft, child abuse, murder. And then you have groups like the ACLU saying the U.S. is committing human rights violations by sending them to the notorious El Salvadorian jail. I thought I'd tee you up with that little ditty, if you will. Yeah, go ahead, Art.
Well, I don't see him going down to El Salvador and protesting in El Salvador in front of that prison or protesting against the Salvadorian government, right? It's much easier and safer to sit here and say, hey, we have a problem. What it comes down to, though, is you have individuals that are in the country illegally. Many of them came into the United States illegally under the Biden administration, and they're being sent back to their country and deported because they are here illegally. Now, they do have crimes that they have committed also in their own country, and their own country are the ones that are, taking it to give them a consequence and incarcerate them. That's what you do when people have been committing crimes. You incarcerate them. It's just, it baffles me. It's crazy for the ACLU to be attacking, saying, hey, you shouldn't send them back. Well, they were here illegally. They found loopholes during the Biden administration to be here, and they need to be deported. It also baffles me that you have leadership within, the United States. You have judges and politicians, and obviously you have your activists and your actors and artists and everything else that have been complaining. But do you want these people in your neighborhoods? Do you want them around your children? Do you want them near the schools? These individuals are guys that have been committing crime. They have ties, obviously, as a terrorist organization through Tren de Aragua with other criminal, entities, and they brought drugs into the country. I don't want them in my community. I don't want them in my country, and I definitely don't want them around my children.
Yeah, so there's a so-called controversy. I'm curious if you know anything about it. Well, I say know anything about it, but talk to me a little bit about this, which is, how do you know they're a gang member or not? I mean, obviously, a lot of this stuff is no-brainer stuff. You just know. But there's sometimes, this is what the liberals are saying. This is what some of the courts, the judges are saying. Like, well, how do we even know that they were part of the gang? I mean, it's not like they go around with I'm part of the Tren de Aragua gang, and they have a card in their wallet on this. So do you know anything about that mechanism of determining whether or not they're gang members or not? How does that work? Do you know anything about that?
Look, many of them admit it, believe it or not. They'll just admit
well, that's true.
That's what it comes down to. They like to show off, their stature within that organization. So many of them admit it. At the same time, look, I grew up on the border. I've been out here my entire life. I've been in law enforcement for close to 30 years. There's different intel that has been acquired. There's different questions that are done when these individuals are detained. There's no doubt in my mind, that the intel is correct. And when they're detaining these individuals, obviously some self-admitting, but there's many, many other red flags that go into content when you're detaining these people and lets you know that these individuals are definitely involved with, criminal activity.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, Art, let's talk about encounters at the southern border. I mean, they have literally plummeted, as you know, since President Trump retook the office there. That would be called the White House, by the way. Officials say last Thursday, There are only 254 apprehensions in the entire southern border. Same day last year saw more than 4,200 under Biden. That's nearly a 95% drop year over year. What are you hearing on the ground about this? What does it look like, Art?
Look, the numbers dropped just because of rhetoric alone. Either that or nobody needs asylum and no one needs to leave their country anymore, right? And the rest of the world is also fixed. But what it comes down to is, you have a president now, an administration that's saying if you come into the country and you're asking for asylum, because he didn't get rid of asylum. He didn't change the immigration law. That's what people don't get. He didn't get rid of it. He just said when you come to the country and you ask for asylum, now you have to prove that you actually have an asylum case. And, I guess the rest of the individuals that have continued to come into the U.S. are saying, you know what, if I got to prove it, I'm not going to say it because we really don't have a case. That's what it came down to. And the good part is it has freed up agents from having to be stuck in processing centers. Now they're working areas of the line that, they hadn't been able to work for the last 4 years. And you are seeing an uptick in, seizures of fentanyl, meth, cocaine, because now you have the agents out there that are able to detect the drugs that are coming into the country.
Yeah, for sure. Strength is everything. They see Trump and they go, I think we'll head back to our home country. Right. We're not gonna worry. Oh, but we see Biden and word salad Kamala, then we're heading for the border, so to speak. All right, Art, great to have you here on the show. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
All right, time to head back to T. Bates in Denver for the opening bell with the New York Stock Exchange. It is sponsored by AMAC.
The Association of Mature American Citizens is the conservative voice for Americans 50 and older. AMAC is fighting for the values that you hold dear. Join today. Together, we can write the course of America.
Actually, no, you didn't lose me. April Fool's Day. It is April Fool's, so I just got our group there. It was Palm. April Fool's. Everything worked. Thank you for the applause, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the applause. I will be here all week. We're getting you ready for the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange. GoDaddy is at the podium. The bell is going to ring here momentarily, and then we'll get you an idea of how things are looking. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. By the way, West Palm Beach, who's your daddy now? Who's your daddy? All right, we're getting you ready for the opening bell. So unfortunately, things not looking so great at the moment. The Dow is down, as is the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ. All three indices are in the red right now. The good news is that everything else, gold, silver, and crude oil, are all up. We, of course, will continue to monitor this, though, for you throughout the day. Hopefully, it will end up being a pretty positive day of trading. And while we may have won this election, the fight to restore our great nation is only beginning. Now is the time to take a stand, and Patriot Mobile is leading the charge. As America's only Christian conservative wireless provider, Patriot Mobile offers a way to vote with your wallet and without compromising on quality or convenience. Patriot Mobile isn't just about providing exceptional cell phone service, it's a call to action to defend our rights and freedoms. With Patriot Mobile, you'll get outstanding nationwide coverage because they operate on all three major networks. If you have cell phone service today, you can get cell phone service with Patriot Mobile immediately with coverage and a guarantee. But the difference is that every dollar you spend supports the First and the Second Amendments. It also supports the sanctity of life and our veterans and first responders. Switching is really easy. Keep your number, keep your phone, or if you decide, you can even upgrade. Their 100% US-based customer support team will help you find the perfect plan for you. Right now, go to patriotmobile.com/RAV or call 972-PATRIOT and get a free month of service with the promo code RAV. Switch to Patriot Mobile today and defend freedom with every call and text you make. Again, to get more information or to switch, visit patriotmobile.com/RAV or call 972-PATRIOT. That's 972-PATRIOT. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back here on American Sunrise, the future of the Democratic Party is getting bleaker by the day. So who are they trying to turn to now? We've got some answers ahead.
Welcome back to American Sunrise. Thanks for joining us this morning. We invite you to join the conversation on Getter and Rumble. Time now to take the political pulse of America. The beat today, President Trump is hinting at running for a third term. Well, Trump told NBC News that there are avenues and methods for him to have a third term in the White House. And he added that a lot of people want him to do it. The president did say one method of how it could happen is to be J.D. Vance's running mate and then have Vance give the reins back to him. Well, President Trump also expanded on this in the Oval Office. Let's take a listen.
If you were allowed for some reason to run for a third term, is there a thought that the Democrats could try to run Barack Obama against you?
I'd love that.
For his third term?
Boy, I'd love that. That would be a good one. I'd like that. No, people are asking me to run, and there's a whole story about running for a third term. I don't know. I never looked into it. They do say there's a way you can do it, but I don't know about that. But I have not looked into it. I want to do a fantastic job. We have 4 years, just about, almost close to 4 years. Time is flying, but it's still close to 4 years, and we're getting a lot of credit for having done a great job in the first almost 100 days.
For more, let's bring in RAV Chief White House Correspondent Brian Glenn. Brian, good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, the president did not hesitate for one moment when he was asked that question about a possible rematch with Obama. So your thoughts?
Yeah. No, he didn't at all. There was no pause between the end of Peter Doocy's question and his answer. He absolutely would love that matchup. I think America would love that matchup. I think Republicans specifically would love that matchup. We know how destructive those policies were. And look, we're closing in on 100 days here in office, and when already the difference that these policies have made in this country and around the world is staggering how successful it's been. So, fast forward 3 years and 8 months from now, we might be looking at this again. But another third term for President Trump, yeah, it looks like he's interested in it.
Yeah. Very cool.
Brian, let's talk a bit about tariffs. I would imagine there's still some buzz there around the White House. Tomorrow is Liberation Day, as President Trump has called it. And it really kind of is the big story there at the White House at the moment, as a lot of people are waiting to see exactly what the president's plan is.
Yeah, it is a big day tomorrow, and that's going to take place in the Rose Garden, from what we understand. So we'll be there in the beautiful Rose Garden, covering that for you. And of course, it dominating all of the markets right now. A lot of talk on that, speculation, what can happen. But at the end of the day, when you really look at it, Terrance, it becomes kind of a reciprocal tariffs, is what he likes to call it. If we've been charged 200% from a country on a specific item, then guess what? You're going to get that as well. I think this is only fair. And it seems like when you're trying to discipline an unruly child and you know what you're doing is for the better of the child, yes, there's some rough points. Yes, you're not going to like it initially, but in the end, it's what's best. And I think we're finally putting these America First policies in action. And yes, that means tariffs on these countries. And I think that steel manufacturing, aluminum manufacturers in this country, automotive manufacturers in this country are going to feel the force of an American first policy. And hey, buy American, make it here, buy it here, sell it here. I think that's the overall theme when it comes to tariffs.
Brian, let me follow up on tariffs for a second. Excuse me, but I did read some liberal legacy network newspapers and broadcasts, so I want to apologize for that. But what they're going to tell me, apparently, is that there's a lot of concern in Republican circles, whether it be in Congress or even some within the White House, about how this might go down, because this is going to be short-term pain. So what's your sense there about some of the concern within Republican circles? I mean, I know Senator John Thune isn't the biggest fan of tariffs overall, and there's others, obviously. So what's your sense about the consternation part of this, the concern part of this?
There is some concern, David, and I think it's all about messaging as well. I'd like for all of us to ask the media and Democrats, where were their concern when we saw our destructive policies and every consumable good and service go up, double in the last 3 to 4 years? And where was their questions when that was happening? And what did they do to correct any of that? Tariffs is an easy, low-hanging fruit thing to criticize for Democrats and Republicans to a certain extent. So if we see the market take a dip or a quick correction, I don't think we should panic. That's what the market does. You look historically, that's what it's done. If all of a sudden the price of sheet metal goes up slightly or lumber goes up slightly, I think that is a short-term effect to what it could be. Look, if we look 2 years from now and see what the price of these goods are, perhaps it will be lower than they are today due to these tariffs that are in place. So it's a bargaining tool, if anything, to get better deals and get business brought back in this country.
Well, Brian, talking about the Democratic Party, we've been watching all morning Cory Booker on the Senate floor. He's been speaking since 7 p.m. last night. I don't know if he's still up there right now, but that's certainly...
He's probably drinking some of that coffee sponsor that we have.
Yeah, 17, yes, absolutely. Well, there he is. He's been talking all night. I think he's trying to possibly beat Strom Thurmond. But we're taking a look at the Democratic Party. Who can be the leadership? I'm not sure that this is a great way to get attention. I think it's a little antiquated. We're also talking about Bernie Sanders, AOC, possible leaders of the party. What's the latest that you're hearing?
Yeah, I don't think we see any front runner right now because no one's really coming out with any kind of common sense. So they're all playing this, let me just be outrageous card right now. Let me just tell people how much I hate Trump. I hate Trump more than you hate Trump. That's what they're doing right now. It could be someone that's not even on the radar. It could be maybe a state senator. It could be perhaps a governor of a state that's kind of a sleeper state that, maybe doesn't get on the radar that much. I've always said Gavin Newsom is positioning himself as far as trying to come across as that kind of common sense governor, even though nothing makes sense in his state right now by this podcast that he's doing. If I had to put my money on it, Allison, if gambling was legal here at the White House, I would put all my chips in with Gavin Newsom for 28. I just think they're trying to get everything lined up for him. I've always also said this. I said this years ago. Mark Cuban. Keep your eyes on Mark Cuban. He has basically stepped away from the basketball association with the Mavericks, doesn't have the majority ownership in that. He stepped away from Shark Tank to free up his time. He said before that he would love to run, but his kids were too young. Well, that was about 6 years ago. They're much older now. He does have a heavy hand in pharmaceuticals and has that type of health insurance. I think what it was. He's very big in that space. Who knows? And identify, everyone can identify him. TV star, reality star, people know him. Sports guy. Mark Cuban could be someone you could look onto. Hang on just one second. I saw a kind of a press gaggle going on over there. Hang on just one second. It looks like we do have President Trump walking out, which is really odd here.
Can we go with that?
Can we have
Brian, if you need to go over there, we can cover.
Can we have a moment? Hang on a second. Let me. You want to meet with me one-on-one in the Oval, guys? Wow. I'm going to go ahead and head off to the Oval right now. I'll bring this to you as we can.
All right. Oh, there he goes. Off into the Oval Office, live television. Nothing quite like it. Wow.
Brian Glenn.
Wow.
Hands down.
We're talking to a tree. We're talking to a tree.
That's okay. We roll with it. Brian Glenn, best reporter in D.C., only on Real America's Voice. Hey, that's okay.
That never happens. Like the president comes out, talks to a reporter and says, I need you in the Oval Office right now on live TV. Yeah. Only here on Real America's Voice are you going to see something like that, folks. We are going to keep the show going, though. We'll get back with Brian to find out what he has to say. Go ahead, David. I'm sorry.
It wouldn't surprise me if someone, whether it be the president or someone in the communications office at the White House, was watching the show live. Brian may have said something in a positive or negative. I don't know. I don't think he said anything negative, but just something that and they knew that he was out there doing a live shot, and all of a sudden, because that felt very like impromptu. So you wonder what's going on there. Anyhow, I'm just speculating, but that's really cool.
That was really cool. That was really cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
A few people have been in that sort of situation where you're on live television and you're called into the Oval Office. Here he is. It looks like Brian is coming back.
He's coming back.
You're back. What happened?
Thank you.
What happened?
It was great. Please. Well, Kid Rock, actually, he called me over there. Kid Rock was still in the Oval, and he wanted to do a quick performance, so I just went in there, and he played a song and sat down and told him that his attire was fitting for me, because Kid Rock was being criticized for not having a suit on in the Oval Office, but had that rather his rock star attire. So he just wanted me to get his thoughts real quick, and so I just ran over there and came back, and of course, April Fools, everybody, April Fools! What a great! You guys
Oh my God! Brian Glenn. Oh,
we are the worst people. I feel that's. Oh my gosh.
I am so gullible. It's beyond.
Hold on. I've got egg on my face. 1 second. Just give me a second.
Sinker. Brian.
I sold it. Okay. I sold it. It's all about you got to set it up right. And I did the whole Me? Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
April Fools, everybody.
Nicely played, Brian. That was impressive. That was impressive. It was amazing. Playing our music to take you off the show.
I'm
playing the music. They're like, okay.
You're still the best reporter in D.C. I love you, Brian.
Brian, April 1st, 2026. We're coming back to you. We're coming back to you on that.
Nicely.
That was good.
Brian, thank you. All right, guys, coming up, President Trump.
We all needed a laugh this morning, right?
You gave us a great laugh. President Trump launching a war on California's woke policies, and the left-wing media is having a meltdown. We'll break it on down as the Trump administration's latest actions to hold the Golden State accountable are now in effect. That's after the break. Brian Glenn for the win, our MVP of the day.
let's spill some tea.
All right, let's spill some tea, sponsored by Artillery Tea Company. Make sure to go to artilleryteaco.com and use the promo code America's Tea for 25% off your first order. Artillery Tea is all natural, whole leaf. The tea bags are chemical free, and each tea bag can be used twice. Artillery Tea Company is family and veteran owned and operated, and a portion of your purchase goes to help veteran and first responder charities. Make sure to go to artilleryteaco.com and use the promo code America's Tea for 25% off your first order. Time to spill some tea, and in the cup today, President Trump's war on California's wokeness is only just beginning. He's tackling education as his first line of attack. The left-wing media is having a meltdown over President Trump enacting 6 separate policies against the state last week, all within the span of just 24 hours. The New York Times released an article accusing Trump of taking aim at the Golden State, instructing several agencies to take action against California higher education institutions. The Education Department, DOJ, HHS, and Agriculture Department all made announcements last Thursday on efforts to take a closer look at California's universities in order to eliminate affirmative action and DEI initiatives. At least 3 investigations are now ongoing in the state. Some political experts say that they were surprised it took President Trump so long to, quote, let loose on California, suggesting the record-breaking devastation from January's fires in Southern California may have delayed the administration's efforts. Let's bring in Allison, David, and Terrance for more. You know, some of these investigations, they're looking into immigration policies, gun control policies as well. Do you think Trump is trying to make an example out of California here? I mean, what message does this send to other Democrat leaders defying his orders across the U.S.?
100%. 100% he's trying to make an example out of them. And you know what? Look, here's the deal. There's a lot of material to work with in California. I was doing some research before the show, and I saw that California is the most regulated state in the entire country. Over 420,000 regulations in the state of California. Wow. So there's a lot to choose from when President Trump wants to kind of maybe take a look at some of these, whether they be regulations or policies or DEI stuff or woke stuff, Allison. I mean, this is what they're doing.
But these are policies that the American people are rejecting wholeheartedly. And so it's really the people saying, no, this is not what we want. And it's interesting, you know, we were talking before about possibly Gavin Newsom running as a presidential candidate in 28. And I mean, I don't understand how you can defend these policies because nobody wants them.
Yeah. I think you make a good point about Gavin Newsom. Yes, President Trump is is using California as an example and making an example out of California. But I think it also can't be overlooked that by targeting California to some degree, he's also targeting Gavin Newsom and trying to weaken him if, in fact, Gavin Newsom does try to run for president in 2028. I think all of those things are tied in one. By attacking California and by making an example of it, you're also making an example of its leadership, i.e. Gavin Newsom, which hopefully will hamstring him long term.
Yeah,
that is a
really
great
good
point. I do want to say one last thing, Emily, if I could, which is that, you know, the proof is in the pudding. I mean, California is a beautiful state, as we all know. And guess what? People are leaving. People are leaving for Florida, for other places. The point is that, you know, that should say it all right there on paper.
Yeah, absolutely. They have more than 400,000 reasons to leave. What was that number again, David?
420,000. 420,000 and change, Emily.
That is just absolutely shocking. Well, no wonder the Trump administration is kind of focusing their efforts on California at this point. We still have a whole lot more to come on American Sunrise. If you hop on Tracy's trolley, you are almost guaranteed to leave with a smile. Find out how one Philadelphia trolley driver is spreading positivity throughout her community, one day at a time, when we return.
American Sunrise. Thanks so much for joining us today. Time now for the sunny side up and in the pan today. A Philadelphia trolley operator is brightening the days of everyone she encounters, making sure everyone leaves her trolley with a smile. Tracy Holmes Williams has been working for the Southeast Philadelphia Transportation Authority for 26 years. While SEPTA sees on average 750,000 passengers per day, only about a few hundred of them are lucky enough to hop on Tracy's trolley. She's decorated the inside with posters featuring uplifting quotes, all in an effort to spread joy and positivity. Tracy says she believes she's on the, quote, front lines of civic mindset and wants to make sure she reminds everyone she encounters to keep their chin up.
Walk around, you're coming into my house. So you coming in my house, I want to greet you. I want you to feel good. I want you to have a nice time. Sometimes I'll say, hold up, don't get on yet. I got to roll out the red carpet. Hello, my name is Tracy Holmes Williams. I've been employed with the authority a little over 26 years. Well, we're the frontline workers, so we're going to be the first thing that the passengers see when we come down the street. You never know what type of day that they might be having, so I just try to be the person that can make them smile. Morning. How are you? How you like the decorations? How you feeling the positive vibe? So I put the positive quotes up here to inspire people because you never know what type of day that they have.
Absolutely love it. Tracy says no matter what kind of day her passengers are having, she wants to make sure she is always sending a positive message. I think this story is amazing. I think she's amazing. And I love the concept of being on the front lines of civic mindset. I've never heard a concept like that. I think that maybe there should be an office for civic mindset, coming up with ideas like this to spread positivity around. I think it's something that should be looked at.
I think that's what Brian Glenn was meeting about in the Oval Office today.
Yeah, let's talk about Brian for a second. All right, hold on. Let's talk about Brian. Because I am scarred. All of you are scarred, and I'm trusting nobody the rest of the day. That's all I have to say. I'm trusting literally nobody. I think they're all lying to me, I've decided.
Okay, it is April Fool's Day, so be careful out there, everyone, while you're... Yes, April Fool's Day. Yes.
But that was a nice story, by the way.
I'm going to have to cook something up good for my kids. I'm going to have to get my kids today. See what... do something. I got to get them today.